Imagine being so cracked that godhood feels like gooning to mid-insta baddies. This man lived through 3 million years. Diddy bent the entire divine realm over and claimed the throne as the #1 powerhouse. But after rolling every deity in existence, his life got drier than your DMs. Diddy, being the god of gods, was such a mid-tier chore that he decided to go full handicap. He traded his clavicular level aura to literally respawn as a soy boy, 0 stamina NPC in the absolute trenches of Earth. He went from clapping celestial cheeks to getting ratioed by common thugs. He's back to level 0, broke as a joke and looking for that high you only get by climbing out of the gutters. Let's see if he can speedrun his way back to the top or if he's officially cooked. 3 million years ago, when the first humans started popping up on Earth, our Gunnar was right there in the mix. At first, he looked like a regular Australopithecus, but he was definitely built different from the jump. He had this wild obsession with hunting that nobody else could match, though he originally thought he was just a normal guy. That bubble burst pretty fast as he started noticing something impossible. Everyone around him was getting old, weak, and eventually kicking the bucket. But he just stayed fresh, no matter what tried to take him out. Whether it was a nasty disease or a predator attack, he just kept on rolling while generations of humans vanished into history. As the millions of years rolled by, his body started evolving in ways that made zero sense. He got bigger, more shredded, and way more powerful with every single era that passed. The loneliness of being immortal was heavy, but eventually it became the only thing that felt normal to him. By the time he reached the modern era, he was so far beyond human that people started calling him Mu, the god of the earth. He eventually stomped every other divine being in his path and took the throne as the strongest existence in the divine realm. The problem was that being at the top was actually super mid. One day he got so bored that he casually slammed his foot into the ground, and the impact was so insane it sent the entire divine realm into a massive earthquake. Gods, angels, and even demons were shaking in their boots because he was throwing another one of his temper tantrums. Lucifer, who was the second strongest god around, was getting pretty fed up with the constant destruction. While the world around him was literally falling apart, Mook didn't even blink. He realized that the last time he had a decent fight was over 1,000 years ago, and he was starting to think that being too powerful was a total curse. Then a light bulb suddenly went off in his head. If his insane strength was the reason life sucked so much, he figured the solution was to just weaken himself. He thought that if he could get a body as weak as a regular human, he would finally have a reason to get excited about fighting again. The idea hit him like a lightning bolt, and he stood up to call for his assistant, Yang Yang. A massive dragon dropped out of the sky with a crash that shook the room, looking as grumpy as ever. The dragon growled out a question, wanting to know exactly why it had been summoned this time. The god is already in full chill mode, casually walking away and telling the dragon to just handle everything while he's gone. It doesn't go quite as smoothly as he planned, though. Yang Yang immediately makes a bold move and casts an absolute spell to physically restrain him from leaving. When the god shoots Yang Yang a cold glance, the dragon instantly backs down, shaking and apologizing, then awkwardly insists everyone deserves an explanation before the upcoming god's meeting. Mook has zero interest in some boring meeting and keeps walking, dragging the dragon along in the chains of the spell like Yang Yang weighs nothing at all. When that fails, the dragon switches gears and starts playing the victim card, crying that if the god doesn't show up, the other gods will blame him and complain non-stop. Mook just casually snaps the binding spell apart and announces flatly that he isn't going anywhere unless Yang Yang actually wants to fight him right now. That is all it takes to flip the dragon's attitude instantly. Yang Yang decides that dealing with angry gods is way better than getting wrecked by this guy, so it just puts its hands together and wishes him a safe trip. The god ignores him and walks toward a tiny floating version of Earth. He touches the surface and starts listening to the prayers coming from the people below. Most of them are just boring and useless, but then one message stops him in his tracks. Someone down there is actually questioning his very existence, which is exactly the kind of bold energy he is looking for. He realizes this is the perfect body to enter to start his journey over. For the first time in 1,000 years, he is actually hyped. He decides he doesn't owe anyone a real explanation, so he just says a casual goodbye to the confused dragon, asking him to look after the kid coming in his place, and sends his soul straight down to Earth. What happens next is something nobody could have seen coming. A 17-year-old named Ho Lee is playing a dungeon-style game, lost in his own world during what he plans to be his last session before jumping off his school building. He hates this world, and as he leaps, he falls while angrily challenging God to send him to another one. Just then, Mook's soul enters his body, and he realizes he has landed in a complete disaster. The kid hits the pavement with a sickening crash before he can even finish his last plea for help. Blood splatters everywhere as his head smashes into the hard ground, and by all rights, he should be a goner. But then things get weird because he is alive, and now Mook's soul is in him. Meanwhile, Lee's soul finds itself standing in the divine realm with his jaw on the floor. It isn't just the fact that he is in a different world that shocks him, but he is standing face to face with a massive, angry-looking dragon. The surprise goes both ways, because the dragon Yang Yang wasn't expecting a puny human to show up so soon. Rewinding just 10 seconds explains the mess. Mu was standing by his mini-Earth with a cocky smirk, ignoring every single warning from Yang Yang. He was way too confident and just sent his soul flying toward Earth to swap places with Lee without a second thought. The moment Mu enters the body, he realizes he is in a total life-or-death situation on with zero time to prep. He is dropping toward the Earth at high speed, and in less than a second, he hits the ground with catastrophic force. His body goes completely still as he realizes he is actually dying on the cold ground with no one around to help him or even notice. But Mu isn't just any god, he's someone who spent 3 million years mastering the human form. He has such a deep connection to biology that he can control his involuntary muscles, including his heart and blood vessels. Even though his heart stops, he manually forces it to beat again, and repairs the damage from the inside to stop the bleeding. It hurts like absolute trash, but he forces himself to stand up and keep moving. Instead of being mad about the bloody chaos, Mu is actually happy because he hasn't felt this alive or in this much pain in ages. He knows right then that coming to Earth was the best move he ever made. Mu starts digging through Lee's memories to figure out what kind of life he just stole, and once he has the details, he decides to head back to the kid's house. It's a total struggle because Lee's legs are weak and damaged, so Mu ends up using his hands to swing along like an ape to move faster and stay off his feet. He eventually reaches the house, but the warm welcome he gets is just the sight of some cat poop left right in front of his window. As soon as he enters the small basement-like house, Mu sits down on the creaky bed and starts reflecting on everything he has learned about Lee's life. According to the kid's memories, he only has one male relative who lives far away, meaning he is basically on his own. It doesn't take long for Mu to realize that the guy he chose is not only alone but also poor and totally miserable. His only daily occupation is attending a place called school, which Mu finds pretty interesting. What amuses him the most is the memory of a specific student who made it his life's mission to bully Lee. This person constantly picked fights and made Lee's life a living hell, which is exactly the kind of messy, chaotic starting point Mu wanted. He is actually stoked about the potential for drama. Feeling a surge of excitement, he throws a random punch into the air to celebrate his new life, but a sharp and unexpected pain shoots through his right arm instantly. It feels like the muscles just tore apart, and he realizes he definitely overused his hands while crawling back home earlier. It is becoming very obvious that this body is soft and hasn't seen a day of action in its life. Even the simplest movements leave his muscles sore and weak. Still, instead of getting frustrated about being stuck in such a fragile frame, Mu just smirks. He is genuinely happy to feel this kind of pain after thousands of years of being an untouchable god. The next day, the police discover the blood and shattered glass at the scene of the crash and rope everything off for an investigation. Mu casually returns to the area, but not to check on the cops. He is there because the building right next to the crash site is Lee's school. He decides to keep up with the kid's routine and strolls into the building to find the classroom. He gets a bit too hyped and slides the door open with way too much force, causing it to bounce back and smack him right in the face. One boy in particular is irritated by the noise and calls him an idiot, telling him to pipe down. Mu completely forgets the pain in his face and walks right up to the kid, standing uncomfortably close with a creepy smile. He recognizes this guy from Lee's memories as the main bully who always made life miserable. The bully has no clue that he is dealing with a god now and starts mocking Lee for not wearing his glasses and looking stupid. Before Mu can even say a word, the boy swings a fist and punches him square in the face to show who is boss. Blood starts dripping from Mu's nose and mouth, but he doesn't even flinch. Mu has his own unshakable rules for fighting, believing a real battle only starts when both sides show they are ready to throw down. His way of confirming an opponent's intent is simple. He stands still and takes the first hit. After taking the punch, a satisfied smile spreads across his bloody face and he springs into action. He interrupts the bully's trash talk with a sudden punch to the jaw, catching the boy completely off guard. But as Mu pulls his hand back, that brutal muscle pain returns to remind him that he is in a weak human body now. The commotion draws the attention of the teacher, who starts shouting for them to stop, and the rest of the class gathers around to watch the nerd finally fight back. The bully is humiliated and furious that he got hit, so he ignores the teacher and charges at Mu with everything he has. Mu manages to block most of the attacks, but he can't help but think about how much faster he could have ended this if his new body wasn't such a wreck. For a split second, Mu actually considers using his godly powers to end the struggle, but he is genuinely shocked to find out they don't work at all in this realm. That moment of disbelief distracts him just long enough for the bully to land another punch right on his face. It isn't as hard as the first one, but the bully is clearly not backing down. He wants to make Lee regret ever fighting back, and Mu realizes he is in a tight spot because his new body is just too weak for a standard brawl. Since he can't rely on his noodle arms or broken powers, he decides to get creative. He lowers his head and takes the next incoming punch directly on his skull, which is the only part of him that is actually sturdy. The bully's fist slams into the bone and his fingers shatter instantly, sending the guy into a screaming fit like a total baby. Mu feels like an absolute genius and moves in to finish the job while the bully is distracted by his broken hand. He rushes forward and grabs the guy, then uses his head to strike the bully right in the gut and the groin. The wave of pain is way too much for the bully to handle, but Mu isn't done making this a day to remember. He raises his head one last time and slams it into the bully's jaw with everything he has. The bully's eyes roll back and he drops to his knees like a loser before passing out cold. The entire class is standing there in total shock, recording the whole thing on their phones because they can't believe the school's weakest nerd just wrecked a top-tier bully. As the adrenaline fades, the metallic taste of blood and the pain from the hits come rushing back, but Mu is actually vibing with it. He finds the soreness satisfying and stares at the unconscious boy like he's a prize. In a totally twisted move, Mu sits down next to him and actually thanks him for the tough fight. Then our boy pulls a Mike Tyson and bites off a small piece of the boy's ear, spitting it onto the ground in front of everyone. The room goes dead silent with horror because Mu looks like a straight-up psycho, but he doesn't care. To him, this was a mark of respect and recognition, turning the bully into one of his playthings, a title reserved only for opponents he thinks are actually worthy of a rematch. Word of the fight spreads like lightning, especially the part about the bully getting neutered by a nerd. Things are so bad that the school has to call an ambulance to haul the guy to the hospital. Mu watches them load his first opponent into the van, but he isn't worried about the kid's health. He's just fascinated by how fast they called for help with those little mobile phones. He even waves goodbye as the ambulance peels off, hoping they can scrap again someday. His peaceful moment is cut short when a furious teacher drags him to the office, screaming about whether he has lost his mind. The teacher gets so heated that he actually tries to smack Mu with a heavy binder, but he doesn't even flinch. Instead of looking scared, Mu actually starts blushing with excitement at the thought of another fight. He looks so thrilled to be in trouble that the teacher gets creeped out and stops his hand mid-air. He just turns around and tells Mu to bring his parents to school the next day. Mu was actually bracing himself for a fight, but since the teacher didn't swing, he takes it as a sign that the battle is off and gives up on fighting back. The teacher dismisses him early, so Mu just does what he is told and heads out. On the walk back to the house, he starts wondering what leaving early even means, since he isn't exactly an expert on how schools work. He figures it's just a suggestion to head back to his base and use the extra time to heal his mangled body and start some serious training. His hand is shaking like crazy from the pain, and he really wishes he could use mana to speed up the recovery. He knows mana is the life force that turns humans into hunters or wizards in other worlds, but in this specific place, it just won't stick. Every time he tries to channel his power, it vanishes in seconds, which is pretty frustrating for a former top-tier god. He finally accepts that he has to rely entirely on his physical strength from now on. Once he gets back to the basement and collapses onto the bed, he realizes healing is going to take forever. He decides to use the downtime to zip back to the divine realm and check on his original body. The second Mu wakes up in his godly form. His eyes widen in total shock. Right in front of him, the soul of the weak kid Lee is actually choking the life out of the dragon. The kid has clearly let the divine atmosphere go to his head because he drops the dragon and demands that Mu hand the creature over to him. Lee has no clue he is talking to a literal god and thinks he can just boss everyone around now that he's in a new world. Mu is definitely not a fan of the kid's arrogant attitude, so he summons a massive godly hand and grabs Lee, making it very clear that nobody gives orders to the boss. He ignores the kid's whining and starts dragging him off to another part of the realm. He decides to give the kid a second chance at life, but he has a very specific plan in mind. A few minutes later, they arrive at the domain of Lucifer, the second-rank god who is busy watching over his own planet. Mu just marches into Lucifer's castle without asking for permission, acting like he owns the place. Lucifer is obviously annoyed by the rude entrance and tries to reject them before they even speak, but Mu couldn't care less about his opinion. He flatly tells Lucifer to open the gate so he can send the boy to Elmer. Lucifer tries to argue that Elmer isn't Mu's territory, but Mu just leans in and reminds him who is actually stronger. He basically tells Lucifer that if he has a problem with it, they can settle it with a fight right now. Poor Lucifer starts trembling in frustration because he knows he can't win a scrap with Mu. Seeing him waste time, Mu just steps forward to handle things himself. As he reaches out to touch Elmer, Lucifer warns him that an unbreakable barrier will block anyone who doesn't own the domain. Right on cue, the barrier pops up, but Mu just shatters it into a million pieces like it's made of glass. He calmly mentions that the rules of the universe are basically suggestions if you're strong enough to change them. Mu opens his hand and releases Lee, telling him to take the leap into the hole he just punched into the planet. The kid is terrified and hesitates, but Mu reminds him that this adventure is exactly what he prayed for, and the opportunity is right there for the taking. Lee is still begging for the dragon even as he's being dragged away, but Mu has zero intention of handing over his loyal assistant. Instead of a gift, Lee gets a one-way ticket to the planet Elmer, as Mu forcefully shoots him straight into his new isekai life. Mu can't help but shake his head at the whole situation, wondering why kids these days just expect everything to be handed to them without putting in any of the actual work. With that business settled, he casually tells Lucifer to look after the kid and heads out. Lucifer just stands there absolutely seething with humiliation and wishing he had the power to tear Mu limb from limb. Lucifer's own backstory is actually pretty wild and not that different from Mu's. He started out as the very first demon lord in history, ruling over everyone on Elmer. In his peak arrogance, he even challenged the god of his world, summoning a massive magical sword that literally split the old god in two. After that, Lucifer went on a total tear, defeating every other god in the divine realm one by one until he claimed the ultimate throne. He was the top dog, respected and feared by everyone until Mu showed up and crushed him. That defeat destroyed Lucifer's reputation, and he's been obsessed with getting revenge on the human-born bastard ever since. While Mu is casually riding his dragon back to his own domain, he doesn't even notice that a demon spy sent by Lucifer is watching him from the clouds, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And it's not just the gods who are salty. Back on Earth, the bully from Lee's school finally wakes up in his hospital bed, feeling more vengeful than ever. He is absolutely desperate to see Lee dead, so he grabs his phone and starts scrolling for some heavy hitters. He eventually calls up Cho Guak, a boxer with a couple of years of experience, and offers him a brand new phone just to help him take Lee down. Cho Guak thinks it sounds like an easy deal and agrees to the favor. The next day, the bully walks back into the classroom like he owns the place, but the vibe is completely different. The room goes dead silent before everyone starts whispering and joking about how he got neutered by a nerd. He tries to act tough, slamming his bag down and shouting that he can still take them all on, but even the class president stands up and tells him to shut his mouth. This totally blows his mind because he's used to everyone being terrified of him. He gets so triggered that he grabs a chair to throw at her, but he stops instantly when a massive Hulk-like teacher storms into the room to see what the noise is about. The teacher notices the class president is still standing and asks what is going on, but she decides to keep things quiet and says it was nothing important. She sits back down, but the teacher tells her to meet him after class anyway. After school ends, the class president meets with the teacher to see what kind of favor he needs. Since she is responsible and reliable, he asks her to check on Lee, who hasn't been answering his phone or showing up to class. The teacher even sweetens the deal by promising her a recommendation letter for her senior year, so she realizes she can't really say no. She eventually makes it to Lee's house, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. After knocking and getting no answer, she finds the door unlocked and steps inside, only to freeze in total horror. Lee is lying there looking like a straight-up corpse with his eyes rolled back and his mouth wide open in a room full of bugs. She screams and calls an ambulance immediately, thinking the kid actually kicked the bucket. The doctors figure out that Mu basically fainted from pure starvation because Mu had left the body unattended for too long. They hook him up to an IV, and right as the nutrients start flowing, Mu's soul zips back into the body. He wakes up totally disoriented in the hospital, staring at the plastic tube in his hand with a mix of confusion and curiosity. Even though he's never seen modern medical tech, he can feel the serum pumping into his veins and realizes it's some kind of high-speed healing fuel. He is impressed by how fast his body starts absorbing the nutrients, feeling like he's discovered some new kind of human recovery magic. The class president is sitting nearby and notices he's finally awake, but his creepy, satisfied smile makes her think he has officially lost his mind. She asks what happened to make him faint, but she doesn't even wait for an answer before grabbing her stuff to go report back to the teacher. Mu sits up and stops her, not to thank her for saving his life, but to ask for information. He rips the IV out of his hand and asks where a guy can go to get stronger. The girl gives him a massive side eye because he looks like a walking disaster, but she eventually suggests a nearby park with some outdoor workout gear. Mu wastes no time heading to the park and starts grinding out exercises until he is drenched in sweat. He looks at the basic metal bars and exercise machines like they are legendary training artifacts. It has been 4,000 years since he last checked in on Earth, so to him these simple tools are revolutionary compared to the primitive methods people used back in his day. He's busy testing out every piece of equipment when a small rock hits him in the back. He turns around to find the same bully from before, who has brought along his cousin, a boxer named Chael. The bully stays at a safe distance, barking insults like a nervous dog and bragging that Chael is going to beat Lee to death. Mu doesn't care about the trash talk. He just picks up the rock and asks who threw it. The second the bully admits it, Mu sees a gap and launches a sudden punch that smashes the guy's already broken nose. The bully hits the ground screaming in pain while Mu just stands there, totally hyped to have a new fight on his hands. Meanwhile, back in the divine realm, the big meeting of the gods is starting, but Mu is nowhere to be found. His nervous little dragon assistant has to stand in his place, stuttering through a message that Mu left behind while all the other gods watch with growing impatience. Lucifer suddenly interrupts the meeting, glaring at the dragon assistant with pure venom. He demands to know why a mere servant thinks he can just waltz into a gathering of gods and speak first as if he actually matters. Poor dragon is scared out of his wits and quickly yaps that he is only there to deliver a message from God Mu. He has zero intention of being disrespectful. He just wants to do his job and get out before things get ugly. With a trembling voice, the dragon begins reading the letter, but the message is just the usual stuff. Mu is simply asking the other gods to let him know if they find any worthy opponents for him to scrap with. Lucifer loses it after hearing the message and slams the table with a resounding bang. As the second most powerful deity, He can't stand how Mu just ignores their meetings and treats the entire divine realm like a joke. Most of the other gods silently agree with him, but they are all too chicken to say anything out loud while Mu is gone. The archer god, who is third in rank and already on Mu's playthings list, sides with Mu. He argues that Mu is always the one cleaning up the messes and stabilizing the world. Lucifer seizes the moment and shouts that Mu's games are pushing every world to the brink of collapse. To prove his point, Lucifer turns to the Cyclops god and brings up the disaster from 1,000 years ago. A massive void creature was literally devouring the Cyclops planet when Mu showed up with a flushed, excited face. Mu killed the monster in a heartbeat, but in the process he accidentally split the entire planet into pieces. Lucifer argues that if Mu had actually cooperated instead of acting like a lone wolf, there wouldn't have been so many casualties. Having swayed the room, Lucifer declares that they can't let someone so reckless keep risking the safety of the universe. The dragon assistant is left speechless, silently praying for his lord to come back before a full-blown coup happens. Back on Earth, the beaten-up bully is still talking trash and promising that his cousin Chael is going to make him pay. Chael, the boxer, is actually a bit impressed by Mu's speed and asks if he trains in sports. Mu just casually replies that he doesn't play sports because he only cares about real fighting. Chael thinks he's just dealing with a delusional middle schooler and spits out his gum, taking a professional boxing stance. He strikes first with a sharp punch that lands right on Mu's face, but the lack of a reaction sends a chill up his spine. He noticed that Mu didn't even try to dodge, even though he clearly saw the punch coming. Chael has no clue he is fighting a god who lives for the thrill of the hit. Mu never dodges the first strike because he uses it as a signal that the battle has officially started. With an unsettling, creepy grin, Mu asks if hand-to-hand combat is his favorite thing before launching himself forward in a perfect copy of Chael's stance. Chael tries to block it effortlessly, but the sheer force of the punch sends him sliding backward in total shock. His hand is throbbing with pain, and he can't believe how much power is packed into such a scrawny body. Mu is absolutely thrilled by the result, even though his weak human muscles are screaming in agony from the strain. He doesn't care about the damage at all because the more it hurts, the more he enjoys the rush of the fight. The thrill of this scrap is way more raw and exhilarating than anything he felt while battling massive creatures in his godly form. Realizing his fragile hands might not survive a long brawl, he comes up with a clever fix and wraps his belt around his fist to protect his knuckles. Chael rushes back in, finally taking the fight seriously and throwing a barrage of fast, heavy punches. Mu manages to block most of them, but the constant strain and pain make it hard to move as freely as he wants. Despite the struggle, Mu starts reading his opponent like an open book. He realizes Chael's professional boxing moves are fast but way too predictable. Within less than a minute, Mu is dodging every strike with ease and even finds a gap to punch Chael's arm mid-swing. The force is so perfect that Chael's arm snaps instantly, sending the boxer into a fit of screaming. Mu just watches him with a smirk, wondering if these two guys are actually related since they both have such a dramatic way of crying. To finish things off, Mu lands one final punch on the distracted boxer and knocks him out cold. The bully realizes he is in deep trouble now that his backup is on the floor. Mu's face shifts into that scary, excited grin again as he declares it is time to pay for all the trouble. He slowly walks toward the guy who is shaking with fear and has no intention of fighting back. Mu hesitates for a second because there is no honor in beating a coward, but he remembers that this is the same guy who threw a rock and brought a professional to jump him. He decides it is too late for the guy to play the victim and smashes him in the face before he can even apologize. Mu shows absolutely no mercy and uses the bully as a human punching bag to test out all the boxing moves he just copied from Chael. Even when the guy is covered in bruises and blood, Mu keeps going until he delivers a brutal knee strike to the face. He finally feels satisfied and walks away, leaving both of them on the ground. Like always, he marks the boxer as a new plaything for the future. With this, Mu returns to the house feeling great about his new life, but his weak bones and muscles are starting to become a real annoyance. He decides to head back to the Divine Realm to check on things and pick up some stuff he asked the dragon to prepare. He sits on his bed and tries to shift his soul like usual, but after several seconds, absolutely nothing happens. He opens his eyes and realizes he is still stuck in Lee's house. This unexpected lockdown traces back to when he disrespected Lucifer and broke the rules of the Divine Realm. On the day he threw Lee onto Elmer's planet, he had mentioned to his dragon assistant just how weak his human body felt, but he had no idea that his actions were finally catching up to him. During a past conversation, Mu had ordered his assistant to track down some healing artifacts while he was away, hoping it would fix his weak human body faster. The problem is that magical items are incredibly common on planets like Elmer because of all the mana there, but on Earth, they are usually obtained through divine blessings or whims. Because they are so rare, any human who actually gets their hands on one is usually treated like a straight-up god. Mu eventually made it back to his domain, where the dragon promised to have the magic items ready for his next visit. Before he left, the assistant reminded him about the big god's meeting, so Mu pulled a simple letter out of his pocket to handle the complaining, and handed it over. Ignoring the dragon's pleas to stay and actually attend the meeting, Mu touched the Earth model and sent his soul right back into Lee's body. Neither of them realized that a tiny demon spy was watching the whole thing and reporting back to Moody's biggest hater. Back in the present, Lucifer is busy analyzing the situation and realizes Moody's godly body is currently an empty shell. He sees this as a once-in-a-thousand-years chance to finally get his revenge, and decides to strike while the iron is hot. Without any warning, he launches a soul taxidermy spell, sending sharp purple lightning spears raining down on the dragon. The dragon's sharp senses save him just in time as he leaps back, his previously awkward face turning dead serious. He demands to know if Lucifer is actually declaring war against the god of Earth, but Lucifer just floats there with total confidence. He loudly declares that he is going to personally kick Mu off the seat of divinity, officially starting the war. The dragon doesn't waste a single second and unleashes a concentrated blast of fire that looks like a deadly laser beam. Lucifer dodges it easily, and the blast loops around the realm before exploding with the force of a nuclear bomb on the far side. The explosion is so massive that the archer god has to throw up a magical shield to protect himself and the other deities at the meeting. Despite the chaos, Lucifer doesn't even flinch. Seeing that his first attack did 0 damage, the dragon activates his ultimate move, Polymorph Release. His body starts expanding and glowing with red lightning as he prepares to go all out to protect his master. Lucifer isn't even slightly impressed, promising to deal with him before moving on to Mu. Unfortunately, the dragon's big transformation isn't enough. Lucifer easily wrecks him and traps his broken body inside the soul taxidermy spell, leaving him completely immobile. The archer god just sighs and decides to head out, claiming the vibe of the meeting is totally ruined. The rest of the gods are frozen in pure shock, too terrified to help or even move after seeing Mu's top assistant get crushed so easily. Lucifer notices the archer god leaving and demands to know if he's on board with the expulsion or against it. The archer god just keeps floating away, saying he's staying neutral in the whole fight. Lucifer is fine with that as long as nobody gets in his way, and he turns to the rest of the gods, coldly asking if anyone else has a problem with him kicking Mu out for good. Seeing the dragon's pathetic state, nobody dares to say a single word. The dragon is still hanging on and tries to warn Lucifer, reminding him that he is absolutely no match for the god of Earth. Lucifer just smirks and drops a chilling truth bomb, revealing that he knows Mu is currently stuck in a weak, pathetic human body. The dragon is completely stunned because he thought he was the only one who knew that secret. It finally clicks why Lucifer chose this exact moment to rebel. Lucifer doesn't admit he's been spying, though. Instead, he blames the dragon, claiming his overconfidence and lack of focus gave Lucifer the chance to figure everything out. The dragon can't stand the disrespect and tries one last desperate move, swinging his massive tail to catch Lucifer off guard. Lucifer stays perfectly still until the very last second, then casually dodges and slashes through the dragon's tail with a magical weapon. The poor assistant's tail is cut into several pieces, but Lucifer purposely keeps him alive. He knows he can use the dragon to track down Mu on Earth and make him suffer for all the times he was humiliated. Lucifer's devilish laughter fills the air while the dragon just coughs up blood, totally powerless to stop him. Back on Earth, things are looking pretty rough for Chell as well. Covered in wounds, he gets a massive scolding from his coach for street fighting, and is forced to take a long break right before his big matches. As Chell leaves the gym feeling bitter, he runs right into Kang, the youth division boxing champion. Kang immediately notices the injuries and asks what happened to his hand. Chell is too embarrassed to admit he got wrecked by a scrawny kid, so a sneaky idea pops into his head. He puts on a sad face and starts fake crying, lying about how he was just trying to help his brother from bullies and got jumped by a whole gang. He really puts on a show, but Kang doesn't seem moved at all and just tells him he should have been more careful before walking away. Chell stops the waterworks the second Kang is out of sight, but he freezes when Kang suddenly calls out to ask for the name of the guy who did it. Meanwhile, Mu is still sitting on Lee's dirty bed, losing his mind over why he can't return to his original body. Based on his divine knowledge, the only reason he'd be locked out is if his real body was seriously damaged. This doesn't make sense since his dragon assistant is supposed to be guarding him. But then a shocking thought hits him. He starts wondering if all the gods teamed up to jump him while he was away. He jumps out of bed in a panic, realizing he needs to act fast. But since he's stuck in a weak human form, he has no moves to make. Frustrated and angry, Mu starts absolutely wailing on Lee's pillow in bed. He hates the idea of those cowardly gods taking advantage of his situation when they'd never dare face him one-on-one. He vows that if he gets back, he's going to turn them all into stew. After a few minutes of punching the furniture, he finally tires himself out and tries to calm down. He reminds himself that the dragon is a tough fighter and wouldn't go down that easily. Realizing he can't help his original self right now, Mu decides to focus on making Lee's body stronger to give himself a fighting chance. With a new sense of purpose, he heads back to the park to start his training again. Mu is back at it, putting every ounce of effort into strengthening his core while letting his trashed arm muscles take a breather for a minute. Even though training his abs for the first time feels like his stomach is being ripped apart, he actually finds the agony pretty hilarious and starts laughing like a total maniac. His obnoxious cackling echoes through the park, making everyone nearby look at him like he is some creepy, unhinged kid who has officially lost his marbles. Right in the middle of a set, a voice suddenly calls out his name, startling him so much that he loses his grip and hits the dirt with a loud thud. It turns out to be the class president again, and she is looking seriously annoyed because he has been skipping school for days. The two of them head to a quiet bench to talk things out without making a scene. Mu keeps it casual and tells her that he has no reason to go to school, since it is not like he can get a good workout in a classroom. When she asks why he is so obsessed with getting stronger, he just shrugs and explains that he lives to fight bigger and better opponents, though his current new body is making that a real struggle. He goes on a massive, hours-long rant about his fighting philosophy, and the poor girl has no choice but to sit there and listen to his endless nonsense until the sun starts to set. Realizing she isn't getting through to him with logic, she switches tactics and points out that training is pointless if there is nobody around to actually challenge him. She suggests that if he comes to school, he can easily start some drama and find plenty of people to fight. Then she just walks off and leaves him to think it over. Mu is actually pretty impressed by her logic and starts considering going to school just for the potential scraps. Right as he is mulling it over, a shadowy figure in a mask appears behind him and asks if he is Lee. Instead of being scared, Mu feels a huge sense of relief because his next opponent has basically delivered himself right to his doorstep. He smirks and stays calm, waiting for the first strike to officially start the match. The masked guy is actually Kang, a top-tier boxer with a heavy backstory. Years ago, Kang's sister was a rising ballerina who got targeted by a sick stalker. Even though Kang stopped the guy twice, the law failed to keep the creep locked up, and eventually the stalker managed to injure the girl's leg so badly that her dancing career was over. After that tragedy, Kang stopped trusting the police and decided to become a vigilante. He started hunting down bullies and gangs to deliver his own brand of street justice, using his boxing skills and a weapon to judge anyone he thought was a threat. Back in the present, Kang throws a preemptive punch from behind, and Mu just stands there and takes it like a champ. Mu is a bit confused though because the hit is surprisingly light compared to the heavy strikes he usually deals with. He starts wondering if this masked guy is just testing his reflexes or if that punch was meant to be some kind of final warning before the real fight kicks off. Mu really doesn't care about the details. All he needs is that first hit to confirm the fight is officially on. He is actually pretty hyped to be back in the ring, totally clueless that this masked opponent is on a completely different level than the usual neighborhood bullies. Kang straight up asks if he is trying to be a gangster going beating up people around. Mu has zero interest in clearing up the misunderstanding though. He basically tells Kang to stop talking and start swinging, which hits a nerve and makes Kang believe all the lies even more. Convinced that Mu is a total psycho, Kang dashes forward and starts throwing heat without wasting another second. Mu stays on guard and starts dodging like a pro, feeling his confidence grow with every miss. Kang quickly realizes he isn't dealing with some random amateur, so he decides to step things up and use some actual boxing tech. He throws a quick jab to distract Mu and block his vision, planning to follow up with a massive strike, but Mu is already one step ahead and blocks the move perfectly. For a moment, it feels like Kang has found the ultimate punching bag to practice on. He starts unloading again, but this time the power behind the punches is insane. As a champion boxer, Kang keeps the pressure at a max, refusing to give Mu even a single second to breathe. Mu gets cornered and can't find a way out as Kang relentlessly targets his weak spots. Things go south fast when Kang lands a bone-crushing punch right to Mu's side. The pain is so sharp it feels like getting kicked in the gut twice in a row, forcing Mu to double over. Kang backs off and coldly explains that he is targeting those injuries on purpose because he thinks unworthy people don't deserve any mercy. Instead of being intimidated, Mu starts laughing through the pain, which absolutely rattles Kang. This reaction makes Kang furious and even more ruthless than he was before. Mu knows deep down that there is a massive gap in power between them, especially while he is stuck in Lee's fragile body. He realizes he can't win with raw strength, but giving up just isn't in his DNA. He reaches back into his thousands of years of battle experience and remembers a rare fight where he was totally overpowered by a giant monster. Back then, he won by shutting off his emotions and using his brain to find openings, even when his attacks didn't seem to do much. He decides to use that same cold strategy now. He wipes the creepy grin off his face and puts on a serious, sullen expression to analyze Kang's every move. His new poker face only irritates Kang further, making the boxer think Mu is mocking him. Kang charges in with everything he has, determined to end the fight with raw power. Mu acts like he is just messing around while dodging backward until his back hits a tree. Realizing he is trapped, Mu digs his foot into the dirt and kicks a cloud of dust right at Kang's face. Kang is wearing protective glasses and blocks most of it with his hands, so it doesn't do much damage. Instead of stopping him, the dirty move just confirms Kang's belief that Mu is a low-life criminal who needs to be taken down for good. Mu suddenly lowers his head, making Kang hesitate for a second, but it is all just a big act to bait him in. Mu smirks and starts taunting the boxer, and the jab works perfectly, sending Kang's temper through the roof and giving him all the motivation he needs to keep swinging. Kang launches another heavy attack, but Mu is surprisingly ready and dodges the punch with ease. Kang quickly tries to pivot and attack from a blind spot, but Mu manages to slip away again, only taking a tiny graze to the chin. Mu doesn't even care about the scratch because he can tell his plan is working. Kang is getting sloppy and losing his focus. Mu realizes that Kang's aggressive fighting style is his biggest weakness on this specific terrain. The whole point of throwing dirt earlier wasn't to hit Kang's face, but to scatter rocks and loose soil all over the ground to create a bunch of tiny obstacles. By mocking Kang and forcing him to move recklessly, Mu is just waiting for him to trip up on the debris. Eventually, Mu gets exactly what he wants when Kang steps on a small rock and loses his balance. Mu jumps at the opening, but midair he realizes his arm is completely dead from blocking all those heavy hits earlier. He doesn't let that stop him and throws a brutal elbow strike instead, which turns out to be way more powerful than any punch. The blow shatters Kang's glasses and leaves the boxer absolutely stunned. Instead of finishing the fight, Mu can't help himself and starts mocking Kang again, throwing out insults and laughing at how easily he got hit. This turns out to be a massive mistake. While Mu is busy talking trash, Kang uses his weapon and crushes Mu's leg in one swift move. The pain is unbearable and Mu drops to his knees in total shock. Now it is Kang's turn to smirk as he rests his weapon on his shoulder and asks Mu if he still thinks things are funny. Kang has reached his limit and decides to break Mu's jaw to shut him up for good. Mu stays on his knees, unable to move, and closes his eyes as he prepares to taste failure for the first time in 4,000 years. Just before the final blow can land, a rock comes flying out of nowhere and hits Kang right in the face. The impact makes Kang stumble, and he quickly looks around to see who interfered. He hears a weak voice calling out for a master and getting closer, which triggers his instincts to bail. Since he is a vigilante who operates in the shadows, he can't risk being seen, so he pulls his hood up and vanishes into the trees. As soon as he is gone, a tiny lizard-like creature with horns appears and calls out to Mu. Mu recognizes it immediately. It is his dragon assistant, though it looks way different and much weaker than before. The dragon tells Mu that after his defeat, Lucifer trapped his godly body in an unbreakable barrier that cuts off time and space, making it impossible for Mu's soul to return. Lucifer is keeping the body in his own domain and feeling pretty smug about it, but he still can't enter Earth to finish Mu off without help. Lucifer even tried to bribe the dragon assistant, promising to make him the new god of Earth if he betrayed Mu. The dragon didn't give a straight answer and only whispered something so quiet that even Lucifer couldn't hear it. Lucifer gets annoyed and demands the assistant speak up so he can actually hear the answer. The dragon assistant finally finds his voice, but instead of answering, he points at the barrier surrounding Mu's godly body. He casually asks if the barrier is strong enough to block attacks from passing through it. Thinking the dragon is just looking for a way to save his master, Lucifer bragged about how the barrier is completely invincible and blocks everything. He even tells the assistant to give up and just join the winning team. But then the room starts getting blindingly bright, and Lucifer freezes when he sees the injured lizard glowing with a massive golden aura. Before the demon god can even blink, the assistant triggers a blast that completely obliterates Lucifer's castle. The explosion is so insane that it burns an entire section of the divine realm to ashes, looking like a straight-up nuclear bomb went off. The assistant uses 99% of his power for the move, shrinking down into a tiny weak lizard covered in soot and dust. Knowing Lucifer is going to be absolutely livid, the little guy makes a run for it, heading straight for the gateway to Earth. Lucifer emerges from the smoke, feeling totally betrayed and ready to turn the lizard into stew. He hurls a magical spear with all his might, but the dragon assistant manages to dodge it and leaps onto Musa's throne, vanishing into the human world. He falls through the sky and by some stroke of luck ends up hitting Kang right in the face, just in time to save Mu. After hearing the whole story, Mu falls into a deep silence, making the little assistant worry that something is wrong. But Mu isn't sad. He is actually fuming. Then, in a classic Mu move, his anger suddenly turns into pure hype as he realizes he finally has a chance for a legendary rematch. He springs out of bed, buzzing with energy, though he knows Lee's battered body stands zero chance right now. He remembers the magical item he asked for, and asks the lizard if he actually managed to bring it. To his surprise, the assistant had been hiding a dragon bloodstone deep in his stomach the whole time. The little lizard struggles to cough it up since the orb is actually bigger than he is. He apologizes for only bringing one, explaining that he was in a massive rush to escape. Mu doesn't even wait for the saliva to dry before grabbing it and activating the healing spell. A bright green aura surrounds him and his wounds start closing up instantly. But there is a huge bonus. Mu realizes his muscles are becoming way more responsive and sensitive. The assistant proudly explains that he infused his own magic into the stone for a body enhancement effect. Since Lee's body is so weak, it doesn't even use up all the orb's power. Mu tries to give the leftovers back to the lizard, but the loyal assistant decides to save the fragment for Mu to use in case of another emergency. The little lizard carefully pushes the remaining fragment of the orb back into his stomach for safekeeping. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, the class president is hanging out with her own pet, a rare yellow lizard that she considers one of her closest friends. She jokingly wishes it could talk so they would never get bored, but she eventually puts it back in its cozy habitat and heads off to school. Life at the school seems totally peaceful and quiet that day, with no one causing drama or bossing others around. Even the bully Moo wrecked earlier is sitting quietly at his desk, now wearing glasses and fully focused on studying for his exams, since that beating apparently knocked some actual sense into him. Everything is going fine until Moo decides to make a super dramatic entrance into the classroom. He spots the former bully and immediately asks if the guy wants to go for another round of fighting, though it is not clear if he is just trolling or being dead serious. Before he can get an answer, the class president appears and acts surprised that Moo actually showed up after being gone for so long. Moo, who has a tiny lizard crawling around under his shirt and making a mess, casually mentions he only came because she convinced him. He adds that he is mostly there to find someone to beat, which makes the girl wonder what kind of chaos he is planning to stir up next. Half the day passes without anything exciting happening, leaving Moo pretty bored. On the floor below his class, Kang is chatting with a female friend who is filling him in on all the school gossip. She tells him about a nerdy kid who finally snapped and humiliated his bullies, even claiming the nerd ripped off one of the guy's ears in a wild move. As she describes the incident and the victim's neutered appearance, Kang realizes she is talking about Moo and the boxer he fought yesterday. It finally hits Kang that Chaeol's victim act was a total scam to manipulate him into fighting Moo. Since it is already over, Kang decides to just let it go for now and head home. On his way back, Kang doesn't realize he is taking the exact same path as Moo. Moo is feeling totally disappointed that his school day was so dull since everyone was too busy on their phones to start a fight. Just as he is about to give up on having any fun, he spots Kang walking ahead and chatting with his friend. Even though Kang isn't wearing his mask or glasses today, Moo recognizes his build and muscle structure instantly. He loses all control and shouts that he found the guy from yesterday, which catches Kang totally off guard. Kang turns around and sees Moo charging at him like a total lunatic. Without thinking twice, he bolts down the street as fast as he can, leaving his confused friend in the dust. He can't understand how Moo recognized him through his expensive disguise, but he knows he can't get caught or reported to the police. Desperate to shake him, Kang jumps into a random alley to hide, and by the time Moo turns the corner, the boxer has vanished. Moo is frustrated that his chance for a rematch just disappeared, but the dragon assistant pops his head out of Moo's shirt. The little lizard offers to sniff out Kang's scent from yesterday, and Moo gives him the green light to track the human down like a well-trained puppy. Just as the dragon assistant is fully committing to his new role as a tracker, someone suddenly appears right in front of him and stops him in his tracks. The little lizard is lucky he didn't get stomped on, and when he tilts his head up, he sees it isn't Kang at all. Instead, it is the class president girl standing there with her eyes wide and her jaw on the floor. Her shock doesn't last long though, because she immediately turns bright red and gets totally mesmerized by how adorable the lizard looks. She is clearly obsessed with lizards, but the dragon has no clue who she is or that he is basically her dream pet come to life. Forgetting that he is supposed to be a hidden demigod, he casually tells her to move out of the way so he can finish his mission. The girl completely ignores his attitude and fearlessly scoops him up in her hands like he is some kind of stuffed toy. The dragon is totally caught off guard and tries to wriggle free, snapping at her and giving an angry warning that he isn't someone to be messed with. He really wishes he had even a tiny bit of his old magic left to blast his way out of her grip, but the girl just finds his anger even more fascinating. To her, a talking lizard is the coolest thing ever, and she instantly likes him even more than her own pet at home. Eventually, the dragon spots an opening and bolts, darting behind Muba's legs to hide. He quickly apologizes to his master for failing the task, blaming it on his lack of power and the annoying girl. Before Mu can even say anything, the girl approaches them with a serious look that actually terrifies the little lizard. She asks if the creature is his friend, and Mu glances at his shaken assistant before confirming that the little guy is actually his obedient servant. The girl introduces herself as Kim Eugene, and it is pretty obvious she is jealous that Mu has such a rare talking pet. Mu reads her expression like an open book and comes up with a sneaky plan. He shifts his leg so the lizard is closer to her and offers to lend the assistant to her for a bit in exchange for some information. The poor dragon's opinion doesn't matter at all to Mu. Eugene's face lights up because she is willing to do anything just to hold the lizard for a while. Without waiting for a response, Mu grabs the dragon by the neck and tosses him toward the girl. The poor thing spins through the air and lands right on top of her head, wondering how his lord could abandon him so easily like he was nothing. Mu just starts walking away, telling his assistant to stay with her for a bit and find his own way back later. He ignores the dragon's desperate questions and acts like he has found something much more exciting to do. Later at Kim's house, things are a bit awkward because the lizard is clearly not thrilled about being a bargaining chip. Still, he can't defy orders, so he sighs and introduces himself properly, telling Kim that they will be working together from now on. Kim is a bit taken aback by a tiny lizard trying to boss her around. but she finds it so cute that her heart skips a beat. She shakes his tiny hand to show some respect and asks if his master is Lee. The dragon doesn't say anything, which she takes as a yes. She then proudly announces that she is the class president, which totally confuses the little guy. After she explains that it means she is the leader of the class and the top student in the grade, the dragon's eyes widen. He thinks his master chose her because she is a high-ranking human. But then a shocking realization hits him. He asks her if that means Lord Lee isn't actually the leader of the class, and Kim just stops and drops the news that Lee isn't high up. The dragon absolutely freezes, feeling like his brain just short-circuited from the sheer shock of it. Once the information actually sinks in, he starts shouting in disbelief because he can't wrap his head around the idea of his master being a loser in this world. Sweating from both frustration and pure awkwardness, the tiny lizard firmly declares that his master is actually the strongest being in the universe, way above any god. He even starts acting like a high and mighty boss again, demanding that Kim do everything in her power to help his master level up so they can finally get their revenge. Kim just thinks the little guy has a wild imagination and finds his sweet talk about Lee pretty hilarious. She agrees to help out, but she sets one condition: that the dragon has to visit her all the time. The lizard takes a second to think it over and realizes this is actually a massive win for him. He was already planning to use her as a human source to gather intel on Earth, so her condition is basically the perfect excuse to hang out and spy on her PC. He agrees to the deal without hesitation, feeling like a genius for making a move that brings his master one step closer to the top. As the most loyal servant ever, he is ready to do whatever it takes to help his lord reclaim his title as the strongest. While all this is going down, Mo is busy doing some borderline insane training with his newly buffed body. Unlike before, he is handling the most difficult exercises like they are absolutely nothing. As the sun starts to set, he decides to call it a day and takes a good look at his progress, feeling pretty hyped about how fast he is recovering. His physical strength has basically doubled, and he decides to test it out by swinging a punch at a solid iron rod nearby. The result is better than he expected. He doesn't break any bones and doesn't even feel a tiny bit of pain. His happy mood quickly dips though when he remembers he actually came out here to find Kang. He figures he will have a better shot at seeing the boxer at school, so he leaves a permanent mark on the training spot and starts heading home. As he walks through the streets, the smell of his intense workout is clinging to him like a cloud. When he accidentally reaches Kim's neighborhood, the scent gets so strong that the dragon picks it up instantly from inside the house. The tiny lizard drops everything, leaves the girl behind with a quick wave, and starts chasing the smell like an excited puppy. He starts leaping across rooftops and walls until he finds Moo and lands perfectly on his shoulder. He proudly tells Moo that his mission with the girl was a total success, but his chatter ends up distracting Moo from a fight happening in a nearby alley. Just as they are about to walk past, the lizard's sharp nose catches a familiar scent belonging to the guy they were chasing earlier. Sure enough, King is in the shadows, acting like a Temu Batman and beating the brakes off someone. This time it isn't a bully though. It is a bicycle thief who is dumb enough to threaten Kang instead of apologizing. Kang is so focused on teaching the thief a lesson that he doesn't notice Moo appearing right behind him. The boxer eventually senses the danger and spins around, only to realize it is that same weird kid who just won't leave him alone. Things get super tense, but the little dragon is facing the wrong way and clinging to Moo's shoulder, pointing in a different direction and insisting they are going the wrong way. As usual, Moo completely ignores his assistant and keeps his eyes locked on the person he's been looking for all day. Moo starts moving forward with slow, deliberate steps, looking like he is ready to throw down right then and there. Kang tries to explain that there has been a massive misunderstanding and that they shouldn't be fighting, but Moo doesn't care about the excuses or even the little lizard clinging to his shoulder. Moo suddenly picks up his pace, making it obvious he is ready to strike. Kang stays in his shell and doesn't show any intention of fighting back until the very last second when he realizes that if he doesn't defend himself, things are going to get really ugly. He quickly takes a defensive stance, bracing himself to face Moo head-on. Kang once destroyed Moo, but now he hesitates after realizing Moo was never the real villain. Moo, newly buffed and itching for a rematch, tries baiting Kang into attacking first so he can justify the fight, but both freeze at the last second and Kang refuses to take the bait. In the middle of this awkward standoff, the bicycle thief sees a golden opportunity. While Kang is totally focused on Moo, the thief snatches Kang's weapon right out of his back. Now armed and feeling brave, the thief swings the weapon at Kang, aiming to seriously hurt or even kill him for the earlier beating. Kang is way too fast though. He shifts his weight and turns his head just in time to dodge the blow. As the weapon misses, Kang realizes that Moo is now the one directly in the line of fire. He actually feels a flash of worry for the creepy kid, but it is too late to do anything about it. Moo watches the whole thing happen and could have easily stepped out of the way, but he decides to just take the hit. After absorbing that magical dragon orb, he has been dying for a fight, and if Kang won't dance, this thief will have to do. The strike lands hard right on Moo's head, but instead of knocking him out, it only leaves a tiny scratch. That is all the confirmation Moo needs to go berserk. He retaliates instantly with a massive kick to the thief's stomach, sending the weapon flying into the air. Mu catches it before it hits the ground and uses it to yank the thief toward him by the neck. He delivers a brutal headbutt that leaves the man dazed and on the verge of passing out. Mu doesn't stop there, though. He treats the thief like a literal punching bag, landing hits wherever he wants and even using the weapon to make the punishment more satisfying. The thief eventually collapses to the ground, crying like a helpless child from the unbearable pain. Mu stands over him feeling satisfied for a second, but the feeling quickly fades into disappointment. He realizes that one-sided, boring fights like this aren't challenging or fun at all. He thinks back to his earlier fights and realizes that Kang is the only person truly worthy of being his opponent. He turns around to find the boxer, but Kang has already vanished into the night, taking the chance to escape while Mu was busy. As Kang ran away, he accidentally kicked the dragon assistant right in the rear, sending the poor lizard flying without even realizing what he hit. Kang finally gets home and casually kicks his shoes across the room, not even bothering to use his hands. His head is spinning with thoughts of Mu and that creepy hyped-up face he makes whenever he's ready to scrap. Just then, his older sister Hyona walks in, jokingly announcing her arrival like a big-shot prosecutor. Ever since a scary stalker incident, the 26-year-old switched careers to chase down criminals and bring some justice to the world. She playfully shoves past Kang and mocks him for blocking her path, and he just hits her back with a warning about his powers. Everything chills out after that, and Hyuna heads to her room to change, but not before telling Kang to whip up some ramen since the kitchen is basically empty. As he stands there, Kang watches her lively energy and wonders if she's actually over her past trauma or just putting on a brave face, but he knows for a fact he can never forget that day. The next morning, Mu heads to school without a single book or even a backpack, only carrying Kang's weapon and the dragon assistant on his shoulder. The poor lizard looks totally drained and keeps apologizing for losing Kang the night before, but Mu isn't even listening. Some of the other students, including the local bully, stare at the creature and wonder if Mu is casually carrying a Komodo dragon, but no one is brave enough to ask. The class president, Kim Eugene, spots them and starts jumping for joy at the sight of her favorite talking lizard. Mu quickly kills the vibe by reminding her about their deal. He describes the guy he's looking for as someone in a mask and glasses, and Kim immediately realizes he's talking about the legendary bully Hunter, who is famous for pummeling anyone acting like a jerk. Unfortunately, she doesn't have any real dirt on him besides the rumors, which leaves Mu a bit bummed out. What Mu doesn't realize is that Kang is actually right there, creeping up behind him. To the absolute horror of both Mu and the lizard, Kang leans in and whispers for Mu to stay in his seat after class because he's coming to find him. Kang casually takes his weapon back and walks away like it's no big deal, leaving Mu with literal shivers running down his spine. Kang is totally confused by the whole interaction and asks who that guy was, and Mu just watches him walk off while calling him the bully hunter. For the rest of the day, Mu is a total mess of nerves and excitement. He keeps telling himself he can wait forever for a real fight, but his body is giving him away. His right leg won't stop shaking like crazy, which is a total nightmare for the dragon assistant who is hiding inside Mu's pant leg trying to take a nap. When the final bell finally rings, Mu finds the class president and hands over his nauseous assistant, telling her he has urgent business to handle. Cam is thrilled to take the lizard and starts walking out, totally unaware that if she squeezes the poor dizzy guy even a little bit too hard, he is going to throw up all over her. The class president happily heads out without asking a single question, leaving Mu all alone in the quiet classroom. As soon as she is gone, a hand suddenly appears from across the room, and Kang jumps out to make his presence known. The moment Mu has been waiting for has finally arrived, and he knows the real fight is about to start. Kang doesn't waste any time at all. He steps inside, shuts the door behind him, and reaches deep into his backpack. With a super calm and deliberate motion, he pulls out a pair of training gloves and slips them on. Mu is a little surprised, wondering if Kang is going to use his belt for protection like he did last time, but he just watches as the boxer gets ready. As Kang finishes putting on his second glove, he looks at Mu and asks if the guy actually enjoys fighting. Mu's response is a total curveball. He shakes his head and says he doesn't fight because he loves it. In his head, Mu thinks about what he actually craves. First, it is the sharp pain and shock of getting hit, something that would terrify most people but feels oddly satisfying to him after being an immortal god for so long. Second, he lives for the burning sensation in his muscles when they are pushed to the absolute limit. Finally, he realizes that for over 3 million years, battle has been the only thing that makes him feel truly alive. He doesn't fight for fun. He fights because it is a necessity for his existence. However, his face twists into such a creepy, hyped-up expression that Kang pauses, thinking the guy is a total psycho. Kang decides not to overthink the weird behavior and reaches into his bag again, tossing another pair of training gloves to Mu. He treats the whole situation like a friendly sparring match rather than a fight to the death. Mu lets the gloves hit him square in the face on purpose, not even blinking, but he still catches them mid-air before they can hit the floor. Kang places his backpack in the corner and seriously tells Mu to put the gloves on. Mu slips the gloves on in an instant and immediately dashes toward Kang, throwing the first punch with everything he has. Kang blocks and dodges the attack at the same time, looking a bit annoyed that Mu is being so hasty. He quickly calms himself down though, remembering he came here specifically to scrap. After a quick exchange of punches and blocks, they both step back to regroup. Kang uses his pro boxing experience to relax his body and avoid letting his muscles stiffen up, knowing that control is way more important than brute strength. He takes a step forward and Mu recklessly charges in for another attack. This time Kang is more than ready. He defends himself perfectly and lands a heavy punch right on Mu's jaw. He follows it up with an even harder strike to the opposite side of Mu's face, feeling a massive surge of satisfaction as he realizes his precision is on point. Kang is so impressed with his own performance that he starts using Mu as a test subject to replay his motions, letting the rotational force of his body flow through his fist. He looks genuinely excited to teach Mu some painful boxing lessons, while Mu is secretly impressed by the skill. Mu realizes that without his body enhancements from the magic orb, those hits would have done some life-threatening damage. Instead of being scared, Mu feels totally exhilarated because this is exactly the challenge he wanted. Meanwhile, on the third floor, a red-haired guy jolts awake from a nightmare during his self-study class. He sees a note on his desk mocking him for sleeping and decides to head home. This is Haejun. As he walks down the stairs and starts eating a snack, he notices strange shadows moving inside the second-year classroom. It is obviously two people locked in a fierce fight, but he can't tell who they are from the hallway. Mu finds himself backed into a corner with no room to move, so he decides to switch things up before he gets wrecked. He throws his foot into the air and plants it firmly right in the middle of Kang's chest, which completely kills the boxer's momentum and leaves him stunned. Mu doesn't stop there and tries to follow up with a high kick to the face, but Kang manages to block it just in time. Kang is absolutely fuming at this point and demands to know why Mu is using his legs when kicks are totally illegal in boxing. Mu just smirks and tells him that he has no clue what boxing even is, then leaps forward for another kick while asking who exactly made a rule about only using fists. The kick lands hard enough to send Kang stumbling backward. For a second, the boxer actually starts to question his own reality. Mu takes total advantage of the confusion and lands another solid kick, cornering the guy who was just dominating the fight a minute ago. Kang is genuinely shocked that someone who looks this weak can hit his upper body with so much power. Then Mu switches his aim and goes for a direct hit on a vital spot on Kang's lower body. Kang freezes because he knows that if that strike connects, the fight is over and he is going to collapse. Mu lands the strike effortlessly, but surprisingly, absolutely nothing happens. Kang doesn't feel a single bit of pain and Mu immediately jumps back to put some distance between them. Mu tries to play it cool with a smug, knowing smile like he held back on purpose, but inside he is actually panicking. The truth is that the Dragon Assistant's magical enhancement buff just ran out of juice, leaving Mu back in a weak human body. Kang realizes something is off and mockingly asks if Mu just lost his power. Kang finds the whole situation so ridiculous that he actually starts laughing in the middle of the intense fight. Mu has no idea how to fix this mess and just stands there trying to act like everything is fine. Meanwhile, Haejun, watching from behind the door, is totally unimpressed by the two of them laughing like they are in a comedy show. He thinks the whole scene is gross and annoying, so he decides to just walk away instead of wasting more time. Once the hallway is quiet, Kang's face turns serious again and he charges at Mu to finish things while the kid is weak. Mu tries to use his knee to block the incoming attack, but it is a total disaster. Kang ignores the face and goes straight for a wide-open vital spot, hitting Mu so hard that he spins around 90 degrees. This leaves a perfect opening, and Kang lands a bone-crushing punch to the head that sends Mu flying several meters back into the wall. Mu slumps down, realizing he can't beat this human gorilla without some serious juice. He tries one last desperate move by focusing all his will to summon a tiny bit of his original mana into his fist. He launches himself at Kang with everything he has left, but Kang just catches the fist midair like it is a little kid's punch. Kang starts teasing him with a smug grin, but suddenly he feels a weird energy sensation ripple through his entire body. The feeling is so strange that he instinctively looks behind him to see what is happening. Mu doesn't miss the chance and throws a punch straight into Kang's face while his guard is down. Even without the magical buff, the punch hits way harder than it should have. It makes Kang feel a little dizzy and snaps him right back into reality, forcing him to refocus every bit of his attention on the fight. Kang manages to grab Mu's other hand right after taking that punch, but he feels another wave of weird energy ripple through his body. He instinctively turns his head to see what is passing through him, and Mu doesn't miss the opening for a second. Mu goes for the most dependable weapon he has left and delivers a brutal headbutt that sends Kang stumbling back. Kang crashes into the classroom door with a loud bang and collapses, totally knocked out cold. Mu stands over him feeling like a boss, wondering if he actually pulled off a miracle by channeling a tiny bit of mana into his fist using a brand new method. Honestly, he is more excited about having Kang at his mercy than the magic itself. He approaches Kang's face looking like a starving caveman who just found a feast, ready to leave his mark and neuter the boxer's ear just like his other victims. Luckily for Kang, fate wakes him up at the very last second, allowing him to save his ear for another day. He quickly shoves Mu away and gets to his feet, feeling incredibly dizzy but determined to stop the madness. Kang admits that he underestimated Mu and accepts the loss, though he is definitely not letting his ear get ripped off. He wants to ask about that strange energy sensation from earlier, but the pounding pain in his nose and his spinning head make it impossible to think straight. Instead of sticking around to chat, he makes a quick excuse and gets as far away from Mu as possible. Mu just watches him walk off, feeling pretty disappointed that he couldn't add Kang to his collection of playthings today. Later on at Kim's house, the little dragon is struggling to carry a bag that is basically twice his size. It is stuffed with things he and Mu ask Kim to buy, and the poor guy is already sweating before he even leaves. He decides to take the shortcut by leaping across rooftops, but then he spots a dizzy Kang walking in the distance. The dragon assistant remembers that Kang is the guy who kicked him in the rear for no reason, and he decides it is time for some sweet revenge. He drops the bag and launches himself like a bullet for a headbutt, but a dazed Kang instinctively swings a punch and smacks the lizard midair. Kang is so out of it that he doesn't even recognize the animal and just mutters something before continuing his walk home, too tired to even deal with the weirdness. Mu eventually arrives at the scene and finds his assistant crumpled on the ground, wondering if the little guy is dead and, more importantly, what is inside the shopping bag. The next morning, Mu is back on the streets heading to school, but he is looking fresh in a brand new uniform and a backpack. The dragon is chilling in the bag, feeling much more secure and hidden than he did on Mu's shoulder. He proudly mentions that Kim bought everything just to keep them happy, and he plans on staying tucked away to avoid any drama. On the other side of the street, Kang spots Mu and crosses over to say hello. He asks why Mu is wearing a school uniform on a Saturday, but Mu just hits him with a confused look and asks what Saturday even is. Kang gets a bit annoyed, thinking Mu is just trolling him so early in the day, but he decides to drop it and get back to the real question. He asks again if Mu truly likes fighting, and when Mu gives the same answer about it being a necessity, Kang finds it hard to believe after seeing Mu's hyped-up face the day before. Regardless, Kang gets straight to the point and asks Mu to start hanging out with him from now on. He promises that if Mu agrees, they will never be bored because they won't have to go looking for fights anymore. Before this, as soon as Mu hears the offer, his whole body starts trembling like crazy, and that scary, hyped-up smile lights up his face again. Everything seems to be going perfectly until Mu suddenly blurts out that he wants to go somewhere to fight right this second. Kang freezes and has to explain that he didn't mean they were going to scrap immediately, but rather sometime in the future. Meanwhile, the dragon is secretly watching the whole thing from inside the backpack, either trying to stay low or plotting how to finally get back at Kang for those two embarrassing losses. The next Friday morning at Garyogi High, a school different from Mu's, a student is standing guard at a restroom door and refusing to let anyone in, even the kids who are about to burst. Inside, a massive guy is grilling a student about how much money he managed to steal. That student happens to be the same thief Mu beat up earlier, and he nervously pulls out some cash, admitting it is only 20,000 won. The big guy named Joe Yang looks eerily like Mu's original powerful form with the same build and face, and he is absolutely the top bully of the school. He gets furious when he hears the low amount, and the little thief starts whining that Bully Hunter interfered and ruined everything. Hearing Bully Hunter's name makes Joe Yang totally lose his cool, and he punches the wall in a rage. He is tired of some random guy messing with his business and orders the boy to gather every single person under his command to hunt Kang down. By Saturday evening, Mu and Kang are walking through the streets together. Kang starts opening up about how grateful he is, admitting he used to just fight recklessly and beat up thugs for no real reason. After meeting Mu, he realized he could actually enjoy fighting with a bit of purpose and control. Mu asks why they don't just fight each other right now, instead of wasting time looking for random people to hit. But Kang doesn't want to fight Mu since he isn't a bad guy target. He promises a fair rematch one day, but not tonight. Just then, they both notice a thick cloud of smoke in the distance. Kang sniffs the air and realizes it is cigarette smoke, wondering how many people must be smoking at once to cause such a fog. He quickly puts on his mask and glasses, knowing it is time to meet their first targets of the day. One of the guys in front spots him and arrogantly demands Kang's wallet, thinking he's just a passerby. Kang knows he found the right people and throws a punch straight into the guy's face. The rest of the group recognizes him as the famous Bully Hunter and sounds the alarm, and Kang realizes he is suddenly outnumbered by at least 5 more people. He quickly calls out to Mu for backup. Mu has already covered his head with a jacket to hide his face and is blushing with pure excitement. Kang charges in first, but Mu just stands there trembling because he still needs someone to throw the first punch at him to officially start. The guy Kang punched earlier grabs Mu's leg and asks if he is with Kang. Since Mu was just looking for any excuse to join, he counts that leg grab as the first strike and launches into action. In just a few minutes, the two of them have absolutely wrecked the thugs. Mu finds the whole thing disappointing because the guys are weaklings who go down in one hit, but Kang is satisfied. He spots a small bag on the ground and hands it back to its owner, a red-haired girl who is being robbed. Kang immediately recognizes her as a girl from his own class that he secretly has a crush on. Before he can even say a word, several more guys show up. The dragon tries to warn Mu, but he has already noticed them. These aren't random thugs, they are Zhou Yang's gang, and they are here to punish the Robin Hood of the school for messing with their work. Seeing the backup arrive, Kang realizes he has to get serious and pulls out his weapon to continue the fight. Mato's disappointed face flips into pure excitement the second he realizes the party isn't over yet. Under Zhou Yang's command, the entire gang charges at Kang and Mu all at once, totally determined to take them down by any means necessary. While Kang stays cool and waits for the first move, Mu is actually struggling to keep his emotions together. He is so hyped for an all-out brawl that he starts drooling uncontrollably like a total weirdo. Without waiting for a signal, Mu launches himself at the group and starts taking them down one by one with single strikes, moving through the crowd like he's playing a video game. He knocks out 3 guys in a row, but just as he's having the time of his life, a heavy slap lands right across his face. It's Zhou Yang, who managed to catch Mu off guard with an effortless move that sends him crashing to the ground. Zhou Yang looks super annoyed and demands to know why there are suddenly 2 heroes running around when there should only be one. A little further away from the chaos, the red-haired guy Heijun happens to be passing by and muttering to himself about some unanswered calls. He's the same guy who was disgusted watching Mu and Kang fight before, but the noise of the commotion pulls him in. He takes one look at the mess of guys fighting like wild goats and feels that familiar wave of disgust, but just as he's about to walk away, he freezes. He spots a girl backed into a corner and Kang standing in front of her, acting like a human shield. Seeing that girl makes Heijun absolutely lose his temper, and the reason for his deep hatred of fighting finally makes sense. Heijun's father was an MMA champion and his biggest hero, but everything went south when the man started using illegal drugs to get stronger. The addiction turned his hero into a monster, and their home became a living nightmare of violence. Eventually, Heijun's mother ran away to save herself but had to leave her kids behind. Heijun was left to protect his little sister, taking all the hits from their father to keep her safe. He realized he couldn't survive like that forever, so he started secretly studying his father's old fight tapes and practicing his moves. Years later, when Heijun was finally as big as his dad, he reached his limit and punched back during a random argument. His father went into a blind rage and threatened to kill both Heijun and his sister, and in that moment of pure fear, Heijun lost control and ended up killing his father. The court felt bad for him and only gave him a year in juvenile detention. But life after that was just as hard. He had to work non-stop to support his sister, treating his body like a machine that couldn't afford to break. Seeing people like Mu and Kang fight for fun disgusted him because his body was his only way to survive. But now he can't just walk away because the girl in the corner is Dao Jun, his own sister and the person he spent his whole life protecting. While Zhou Yang stands there looking confused about the 2 heroes and Mu lies unconscious on the floor with a panicking dragonling trying to wake him up, Heijun makes his move. He creeps up behind Zhou Yang without making a sound and strikes a vital weak spot, catching the big guy completely off guard. Shocked and confused, Zhou Yang drops to his knees, unable to process who would dare touch him from behind. Heijun doesn't give him a second to recover. He grabs his head with one hand and slams it into the ground with all his strength, finishing off the bully as quickly as possible. The dragon assistant is frantically trying to wake up his master, shouting louder and louder as the chaos unfolds. Before he can finish, Heijun accidentally steps on the little guy while rushing past to reach his sister. Kang watches everything go down but is totally shocked about who this new guy is or why he is suddenly wrecking everyone. In the blink of an eye, Heijun takes out 2 bullies like they are nothing, and then slams the heads of the last 2 thugs against the walls. When he finally reaches Kang, Heijun gives him a cold, serious look and mentions that they have all crossed a line they should have never even thought about. Kang quickly realizes Heijun isn't just another thug. He is clearly there for the girl. Panicked, Kang tries to explain himself, but the girl suddenly shouts for her brother, confirming they are actually siblings. Before Kang can wrap his head around the family connection, Heijun takes the chance to attack. Being a champion boxer, Kang sees him coming and throws a random punch to defend himself, but Heijun dodges it perfectly. Instead of a brutal strike, Heijun just gives Kang a firm push that sends him stumbling back without actually hurting him. Without wasting any time, he grabs his sister's hand and tells her to pull herself together and run. As they bolt, the girl accidentally drops her small blue wallet, but Heijun doesn't even notice because a much bigger problem is blocking their path. Zhou Yang is back on his feet and looking absolutely furious. He starts screaming and demanding to know who Heijun is, but the guy has no interest in chatting and prepares to force his way out. Suddenly, someone else steps in and finishes the job. Mu has finally regained consciousness and punches Zhou Yang square in the face for the 2nd time. Heijun is momentarily confused about where this guy came from, but he uses the opening to grab his sister and get them out of the alley. Mu is absolutely thrilled to be back in the fight, looking like he's having the time of his life. Kang, however, is busy scolding him for exposing his face and making himself a massive target for everyone. Meanwhile, a dizzy Zhou Yang struggles to stand and watches the 2 heroes run off into the distance. He is in no condition to chase them, so he just swears loudly and promises to find them again and tear them apart one by one. A few hours later, Kang is sketching a picture of Zhou Yang and trying to explain this situation to Mu. He explains that Zhou Yang is one of the most infamous bullies in the area, part of a top-tier bully trio known as Gadori. The group includes 2 other bullies from different schools, and together they are the kings of the local delinquent scene. Kang points out that things only got this bad after Zhou Yang showed up and started making the gang extort money from people in broad daylight. Despite Kang's thorough explanation, Mu looks completely lost and clueless. He asks Kang to explain the whole bully and mugging thing from the very beginning because he can't remember a single detail. When Mu admits he doesn't even know what Gadori means, Kang totally loses his temper. He snaps and asks if Mu's brain is just for decoration because it clearly isn't working. The dragon assistant can't sit quietly while his lord is being insulted, so he pops out of his hiding spot and perches on Mu's head. He starts shouting and calling Kang a bastard, demanding to know how he dares to be so rude to a god. Kang is absolutely shocked and has no idea what he is looking at, eventually muttering and wondering what kind of frog can talk like that. Being called a frog doesn't sit well with the dragon assistant, who still thinks he is a mighty beast. Mu casually introduces the little guy as his assistant or friend, which just makes everything weirder. At this point, Kang is starting to think he has gotten himself involved in a massive, strange mess with someone who doesn't even know the days of the week. Mu is actually kind of impressed that a regular human like Kang has already figured out he isn't originally from Earth. Both of them end up speaking their minds at the exact same time, with Kang wondering out loud if Mu is some kind of alien while Mu casually declares himself a god. To Kang, Mu looks like anything but a divine being, and staying true to his clueless nature, Mu immediately asks what an alien even is. This whole back and forth is happening inside President Kim's house, and she is beyond annoyed that she's being forced to mend Mu's ripped-up shirt while they argue. Her mood softens a bit, though, when the dragon assistant plops down on her feet and starts playing with her phone like a little kid. To make things simple for Mu's tiny brain, Kang explains that whether he's a god or an alien, their main target is the big guy who slapped Mu and started this whole mess. Kang is putting all the blame on Zhou Yang for what happened to Dao Jun, and just thinking about her struggle makes his blood boil with anger. Mu finally gets who they are supposed to focus on, and he is actually pretty happy about having had a real fight, even if it meant getting beaten up. However, he knows deep down that he is no match for Zhou Yang in a fair fight right now because the size difference is just too much. Kang suggests that Mu should come train in his gym, but Mu shoots that idea down immediately. He doesn't like Kang's boxing style because it only focuses on fists, and he believes he needs something much rougher and more diverse. Just then, the dragon assistant perks up and crawls over with Kim's phone, showing them a video of an underground arena challenge. The video features an undefeated fighter with a 13-win streak who wrecks people in seconds. The girl streaming the fight offers a reward of 1 million won for anyone who can beat him. Kang recognizes the fighter as a member of the Gadori gang, which is all Mu needs to hear. He decides right then and there to use this arena to train, defeat Zhou Yang, and then take down the rest of the gang one by one. While things are heating up on Earth, the Divine Realm is looking even more serious. Lucifer launches a massive assault on the Earth God's domain, desperate to kill Mu before he fully recovers. Believing he finally cracked the barrier, Lucifer is stunned when the mini-Earth emerges completely untouched. Realizing Mu once shattered his own planet's shield effortlessly while he can't even scratch this one, sends Lucifer into furious rage. Back on Earth, Zhou Yang is just as furious as Lucifer. To blow off some steam, he starts punching and kicking a door while screaming about how those heroes humiliated him. It turns out he is attacking a public restroom door, and the poor guy trapped inside is so terrified that he loses control of himself 3 times. Zhou Yang eventually walks out of the restroom feeling totally defeated and embarrassed that a bunch of weaklings managed to get the better of him. He hasn't gained anything from the day, and the same small lackey from before waits outside, desperately trying to cheer up the grumpy leader. With a smug grin, the small thief pulls out something he swiped earlier, Dao Jun's blue wallet, which she had dropped without even realizing it. Zhou Yang snatches the wallet and starts shaking it like crazy to see what is inside, but only a few measly coins fall to the ground. This makes Zhou Yang absolutely lose his mind because he thinks the little thief is mocking him with such a pathetic amount of money. He doesn't notice right away that Dao Jun's school ID card also fell out, showing her photo, full name, and school details. Once Zhou Yang picks up the card and stares at it, his mood shifts instantly. A sly grin spreads across his face as he realizes he can use this info to finally get back at those annoying heroes. The next morning, Mu and the dragon are walking through the streets with the little lizard trying to guide them using a map President Kim drew. They are heading toward the underground arena from the video, but things take a weird turn when they pass a guy walking his dog. The dragon accidentally lets out a small fart, and while Mu and the guy don't notice, the dog definitely does. The smell hits the dog so hard that it goes on a total rampage, lunging at the dragon and biting him right on the butt to seal the exit and teach him a lesson. The two of them trade angry glares as they part ways, with the sword dragon vowing to get his revenge on the crazy creature someday. They finally reach the destination, where the girl from the video is sitting at a table evaluating fighters. When it's Mu's turn, she recognizes his high school uniform and asks if she's correct about where he goes to school. The dragon pops his head out to whisper for Mu to just agree, and Mu follows the instructions perfectly. Then the girl asks what kind of fighting experience he has, like boxing or wrestling. Mu pauses to calculate the math on his fingers and then confidently announces he has 3 million years of experience. Everyone in line bursts out laughing at the clueless idiot, but the girl actually likes the answer and decides to let him join the fight. The entry fee is 50,000 won, and the dragon pulls out some cash from a hidden spot to hand to Mu. It turns out the sneaky lizard is a pro thief who swiped Kim's wallet earlier, but neither he nor Mu can actually count money properly. They only have 46,000 won, but the girl likes Mu enough to give him a discount and let the missing 4,000 won slide. As Mu walks away, he spots a big guy in a green hat and jacket leaning against a lamppost. Even from a distance, Mu can see the guy has serious muscle definition and suspects he might be the Godori member Kang mentioned. A few minutes later, the event is about to start, and the guy finally reveals his face. It turns out to be someone who looks way too much like a girl, which is a bit of a surprise. The announcer girl then kicks things off by introducing the undefeated champion in the center of the arena. Everyone else forms a wide circle around them, keeping their distance as the hype for the first match starts to build. Then there is Mu, who acts like a total airhead and steps forward like an idiot. He is completely clueless and thinks he is supposed to just walk up and fight the champ one-on-one right away. He plants himself right in the middle of the arena, gets into a goofy fighting stance, and declares that he is ready to go. Before Mu can even take a step, the short girl rushes over and stops him. She looks totally shocked and frustrated, clearly thinking Mu is about to ruin her entire event. She rolls her eyes and pulls a piece of paper out of her pocket to explain the rules in a way his low IQ might actually understand. She points out that there is a tournament bracket and he has to fight other people first to earn a shot at the champion. Mu decides to actually cooperate for once, and an hour later, 3 matches have finished. Finally, it is Mu's turn to step up. As fate would have it, his opponent is the same guy whose dog attacked the dragon earlier that morning. The host introduces Mu as the fighter with 3 million years of experience, a claim that makes the audience laugh because nobody believes it. She then introduces the opponent as a polite master of Chinese martial arts. While the dragon is watching from the sidelines and listening to people place bets, he gets distracted by a dog barking its head off nearby. He realizes it is the same mad dog that bit his butt earlier. Fueled by pure rage, the little lizard leaps into the air with so much force that people think a bird is flying by. He lands gracefully near Mu, which startles his master, but the dragon is too busy challenging the dog to a fair fight. To everyone's shock, the dog breaks free from its collar and dashes into the middle of the ring to face him. The interviewer girl thinks this is the best thing ever and immediately announces a rare double battle. Owners against owners and pets against pets. She wants those extra views for her stream, so she calls it the 300 million year brawler versus the Chinese kung fu specialist. The Chinese student is busy staring at the dragon and wondering what kind of creature has horns and wings, but the girl starts the match before he can get an answer. Trying to be confident, the guy explains that he uses an ancient style that mimics wild beasts. He shapes his fingers like paws and warns Mu not to underestimate the tiger style. He dashes forward and tries to strike, but Mu is way faster and lands a brutal punch right in the boy's stomach. The student tries to scream, but the wind is completely knocked out of him and he collapses onto the floor. He realizes too late that he was the one who underestimated the fight. Mu just looks down at him and questions the whole technique, pointing out that humans have limits and trying to copy animals just makes your moves easy to predict. The Chinese boy slowly struggles back to his feet, feeling like he just hit a solid concrete wall. Even though he is in a world of pain and knows Mu is on a different level, he decides he isn't going to give up without trying every last move he has. As a last resort, the Chinese martial artist decides to use a forbidden technique his master specifically told him never to use on humans. He suddenly drops both hands to the ground in a low crawl, which completely catches Mu off guard. While Mu is busy wondering what is going on with this strange guy, the crowd is actually more interested in the side battle between the dragon and the dog Cerberus. The poor dragon is struggling since he has lost almost all his godlike power, and he has no clue how to deal with a dog this wild. Before he can even think of a plan, the Chihuahua charges at him with full force. The dog pulls off a crazy ninja move right before reaching the little lizard, making it look like there are 3 of him at once. The crowd and the streamer girl are absolutely amazed, wondering if this is some kind of secret ninja dog. The dragon tries to defend himself with his bare hands, guessing that the middle dog is the real one, but he gets it totally wrong. The real Cerberus is actually the one on the left, and it takes full advantage of the opening by biting the dragon's neck. The poor little guy screams for help as the streamer girl narrates the dog's big victory, but the Chihuahua isn't finished and gets ready to pounce again. Back in the main fight, the Chinese guy is still down on all fours, copying the movements of wild animals to face Mu in a totally new way. He dashes forward with incredible speed, and while Mu stays calm, the crowd starts laughing at the silly-looking martial arts style. Even the guy's master appears in the crowd, looking totally ashamed that his student is showing off such a weird move in front of an audience. The Chinese boy doesn't care about the haters though. He is fully focused on taking Mu down. He suddenly leaps into the air and swipes at Mu's face with what he calls tiger form. Because Mu was distracted by the low stance from earlier, he isn't fast enough to block the strike. The boy lands a bit further away, convinced he just shredded Mu's face into pieces. Mu holds his face in pain and realizes he really underestimated this kid. Luckily, the guy only has fingernails instead of actual claws, so Mu only ends up with 4 shallow scratches instead of a ruined face. The fight heats up even more as the boy charges again, switching through a bunch of different animal styles. He copies a cat, then bites Mu's leg like a dog, and even tries to backkick him like an angry donkey. Mu feels completely stuck because he can't predict what move is coming next. Even in this tough spot, Mama starts to feel that familiar spark of excitement from being in a real battle. He suddenly looks over at Cerberus, who is still bullying the dragon, and realizes that since his opponent is copying 4-legged animals, they must share the same weak spots. He figures out that the area right behind the head along the back is the key to winning. Just as the Chinese guy rushes in for another unique attack, Mama kneels down and starts gathering all the strength in his legs. The opponent slows down, confused by the sneaky move, but before he can react, Mama shoots into the air like a kangaroo. He jumps so high that everyone loses track of him, and the shocked crowd starts recording the impossible leap on their phones. With all the noise from the crowd and everyone filming, the Chinese martial artist realizes he needs to look up fast and get ready to defend himself. But before he can really react, Mama lands right on his head with one foot and then comes down with his other foot on the guy's butt, adding some extra force to make the move even more effective. Now looking way happier after all that struggling, Mama realizes he has finally figured out the best way to attack this 4-legged style. From above, since nothing else seemed to work, people nearby start cheering for Mama, while a few others look pretty mad because they bet on the Chinese fighter and just lost their cash. After knocking down his opponent, Mama suddenly remembers his assistant is still fighting and gets curious about what is happening with the dragon. But when he looks over, he sees that the Chihuahua has already handled the dragon like a pro and is now standing there barking at Mu. The situation gets a little weird when Mu suddenly stares at the dog with a scary look, clearly upset to see his assistant defeated by such an ugly-looking dog. The dog's tough attitude disappears in an instant, and it goes limp like it is playing dead because its instincts tell it that Mu is way out of its league. Just then, the announcer declares Mu the winner and announces that the dog is forfeited to him, which makes the crowd cheer for him once again. With everything dealt with, Mom has just one thing left to do, which is to leave his mark on the worthy opponent who gave him such a hard time. After that match, 4 winners are decided, and over the next hour, 2 more battles take place. The 13-win streak champion takes both and moves on to the final, waiting for her next challenger. Now it is time for the 7th match, Mama versus a new opponent, with the winner heading to the final. The short announcer girl starts hyping up the fighters again, introducing Mom as the 3-million-year fighter and his opponent as a professional boxer with tons of experience. To everyone's surprise, it turns out to be none other than Chiel, the same guy Mama beat up badly last time. Chiel still has marks from their last fight visible on his arm and ear, and facing Mom again while he isn't fully healed is probably the last thing he wanted. Mom is a little slow on the uptake and doesn't recognize him right away, but after staring for a bit, he finally remembers. Unlike Chiel, Mama actually gets excited and grins like a kid who just realized he gets to beat up this tough guy all over again. Both of them step forward for the rematch, and the girl in charge starts the fight by asking who is going to take on the undefeated champion. Right away, both Mu and Chiel try to land the first punch without breaking eye contact for even a second. Almost like they are trying to show off, they go punch for punch to test each other's strength. Even though Chiel's arm still isn't fully healed, he uses that very cast hand to hit Mu, and surprisingly, it is Mu who feels the pain shoot through his fist. Mu quickly pulls his hand back, unable to move his fingers because of the sharp pain, while Chiel feels a bit relieved to finally give Mu a taste of what he went through. Mu tries to pull himself together, but the pain is almost too much for anyone to handle. Then again, Mu isn't just anyone, and he decides to use that overwhelming pain as a reminder that he feels more alive, and that is exactly why he came to Earth. With an intense look on his face, he manages to shock Chiel, whose reaction also serves as a warning not to take this guy lightly. Thinking fast, the boxer comes up with a quick plan and starts launching a series of quick jabs to throw Mu off his game. The plan is to find the right moment and then land a powerful kick to finish things off. Mu starts to feel better and manages to defend himself pretty easily, so Chiel moves on to the second part of his plan. He is pretty sure Mu thinks of him as just a boxer and would never expect a kick, so he figures this will be his ace up his sleeve. But even before Chiel can actually swing his leg, Mu has already picked up on what is coming just by watching the way his foot muscles move. Feeling confident, Chiel starts trash-talking Mu while his leg is still in the air. What he doesn't know is that Mu is ready to turn the tables, and in a flash he lands a sudden punch right to one of Chiel's vital spots. This is a technique he learned from watching Kang earlier, and the strike causes his body to twist helplessly to the side. That move sets up the perfect opening for the second part of the combo, which is a brutal strike to the face right after the punch to the knee. Just like Kang had done before, Mu pulls off the move perfectly and catches Chael completely off guard. Chael can't handle the force of that sudden blow, and he hits the cold ground so hard that he is knocked out cold instantly. Suddenly, Mu leaps on top of the fallen boxer and ruthlessly tears off another piece of his ear, completely ignoring the earlier warning from the dragon assistant. In the crowd, the bully who used to mess with Lee is having a PTSD moment seeing this. Now it is finally time for the main event against the tall girl with the 13-win streak. Mu is absolutely pumped because he has been waiting for this moment ever since people tried to waste his time earlier. As the seconds tick by, he starts losing control of his body and begins shaking with pure excitement. Even before the short host can finish her speech to start the fight, Mu lunges forward to get the upper hand. However, the girl is ready and uses her long legs to kick him right in the face. Even though it catches him off guard, Mu manages to block the attack and protect his head, but he is still amazed at her insane speed. They jump right back into the action, but it honestly feels like a one-sided beatdown. The girl keeps coming at him with kick after kick, barely giving Mu a chance to do anything except dodge or block. He finds himself stuck and unable to figure out how to get close enough to land a hit of his own. During a brief pause, Mu is breathing hard and trying to figure out how to turn things around. He knows anyone from the Ghidorah gang is going to be a nightmare to fight, but he is determined to find a win. The only move he can think of is to do something totally unexpected, so he pulls the same goofy face he used during his first fight with Kang. The girl is a little thrown off and actually looks worried that something might be wrong with him. Mo uses that moment of confusion to close the gap with a sudden leap while keeping up the silly expression. He hopes it will distract her just enough to catch her off guard, but his hopes are crushed when she lands a solid kick right to his face. Even after taking that heavy hit, Mo immediately switches to a backup plan and spins around to throw a perfect spinning kick toward her face. Unfortunately, his legs aren't quite long enough to land a knockout blow, and he only manages to knock off the girl's hat. After that, Mo quickly backs up to a safer distance and starts feeling frustrated by the huge difference in their size, wishing he had picked a taller body to possess. Meanwhile, the girl finally realizes she has been underestimating her opponent and decides it is time to get serious. Faster than before, she lunges forward and aims a direct kick at Mo's midsection. She lands the hit just like she planned, but Mo is quick enough to block most of the impact with both hands. The girl immediately jumps into the air for another spinning kick, and Mo finds himself in a really bad spot where one more hit could finish him. But right as the kick is about to connect, Mo seems to vanish into thin air. Whether he moved fast or actually disappeared for a second, the girl is completely stunned and starts looking around to see where he went. To her disbelief, Mo is now moving on all fours just like an animal, copying the Chinese martial artist he fought earlier. He figured this was his best shot at beating a lamppost girl, and the plan actually starts working. The tall girl has no idea how to handle someone moving like a wild dog, and her moves become less sharp as she gets nervous. Mo dodges her attacks easily one after another, and the crowd starts cheering wildly for his new technique. Even the Chinese guy and his master's ghost are quietly impressed that Mo could copy a 5-year training style so perfectly after seeing it just once. Back in the ring, Mo keeps dodging the girl's strikes one after another, but he soon decides that just avoiding her isn't enough to win. He starts circling around her on all fours, moving so fast that the tall girl looks completely shocked and confused. She has no idea what kind of human can spin around like that, and feeling desperate to stop him, she senses an attack coming from her blind spot. Her body reacts on instinct and she spins around to land a massive kick, but she only hits her own hat that was floating in midair. It was all just a clever distraction, and quicker than lightning, Mo appears on her other side. Now that he has a perfect opening, Mo decides to drop the small animal act and tap into the strength of a mighty monster behemoth. During his 3 million years of life, Mui spent some time on Lucifer's planet, a place overflowing with mana where animals evolved into terrifying monsters. Mui survived by hunting these creatures, but there was one massive behemoth whose power impressed him more than anything else. To replicate that strength, Mu quickly rearranges his muscles and prepares to strike. He doesn't even use a punch. Instead, he hits the tall girl so hard and fast that she goes flying backward like she was struck by a speeding truck, eventually crashing into the interview table. The girl is still awake but in serious pain from what feels like broken bones. Mu isn't about to let her off the hook and leaps into the air to finish the job with a brutal double-handed strike. However, the announcer girl jumps in at the last second and saves the fighter, claiming the match is over because the girl was knocked out of the ring. She officially declares Mu the winner of the tournament, leaving the crowd stunned. Some people are amazed by Mu's power, while others think the out-of-the-ring excuse was just a weird way to save the champion from a beatdown. Without caring about the noise, the announcer wraps up her stream and tells Mu to follow her into a quiet alley to get his 1,000,001 prize. A few minutes later, as they walk into the secluded spot, the girl's attitude flips completely. At first, it seems like she might offer some other kind of payment, but Mu isn't interested in that stuff anyway. Without any warning, the short girl spins around and nails Mu right in the chest with a savage knee strike. Even though she is barely a meter tall, the hit is incredibly powerful and catches Mu totally off guard since he had his hands in his pockets. He crumples to the ground, realizing he made a massive mistake by letting his guard down around this little demon. As Mu lies there struggling to catch his breath, the girl finally reveals her true identity. She isn't just a host, she is actually Chunu, one of the top 3 Ghidorah members. Mu had actually sensed the tension in her muscles and knew an attack was coming, but he chose to take the hit on purpose to officially start their fight. He just didn't expect her to hit like a freight train. The blow leaves him temporarily paralyzed and unable to move, forcing him to just watch as Chunu casually walks away, leaving the legendary fighter face down in the dirt. Off to the side, the tall girl waits just in case her short friend needs any backup. When she sees Chunu approaching, her whole vibe changes instantly. She looks totally ashamed and starts apologizing right away for letting her guard down and causing so much trouble during the fight. Chunu doesn't even get mad though. Instead, she just tells her teammate to hurry up, and the two of them take off quickly. They are clearly hoping to disappear before anyone else sees them. Meanwhile, Mu is barely able to crawl toward the street. His voice is shaky and weak as he whispers for them not to go, because he can still fight. When he realizes they are already gone, he quickly calls out for the dragon assistant and his healing orb so he can chase them down. Unfortunately, the little lizard is nowhere to be found, and Mu realizes he hasn't seen his friend since they left the arena. The scene then shifts to another part of the city where the bully who used to mess with Lee is rushing down the street. He is carrying something suspicious hidden under his shirt and looks completely panicked. A few days ago, Chael introduced him to an online gambling site, and the kid got way too curious. In just 10 minutes, he lost 5 million won from his mom's bank account. Every time he tried to win the money back, he just ended up betting more and digging a deeper hole. He knows he is in massive trouble and might end up homeless if his parents find out. Desperate for a fix, he snatched something valuable and ran to a shady student loan place that takes collateral. He finally makes it there and drops his shirt on the desk, revealing the dragon assistant with his hands and legs tied up. The kid pulls out his phone and shows a picture of a rare lizard from New Zealand, trying to convince the man at the counter that the dragon is a super valuable mutation. The guy behind the desk looks skeptical and glances over at the real boss sitting quietly in the corner. After a slight nod from the boss, they decide to give the annoying kid a loan of 1 million won. The bully leaves the office feeling a bit relieved but still stressed, convincing himself this is the only way to get his mom's money back quickly. Just as he walks away, a person in a hoodie passes him and heads up to the same office. The newcomer places Dao Jun's school ID card on the table and nervously asks for a short-term loan. The person is shaking so much that the man in the suit tells them to take off the hoodie to prove they didn't just steal the ID. When the hood comes off, it is clear the person isn't Dao Jun, even though there is a slight resemblance. They look absolutely terrified of getting caught. The boss gives another nod and the employee hands over 450,000 won while reminding them to make payments on time. The person bolts out of the building and meets up with Zhou Yang, who is waiting nearby. Zhou Yang is pleased that the mission was a success and explains that he couldn't be seen near the office himself. Inside the office, which has the weird name How Many Pawn and Loans, the boss in a purple hoodie fiddles with Dao Jun's ID card. His employee asks why they are giving loans to suspicious students who clearly can't pay the money back. The boss just smirks and flicks the card with a practiced hand, making it stick perfectly into a wooden board. He says there are plenty of ways to get his money back and that there is nothing to worry about. The wooden board is actually covered in a bunch of other ID cards, and right in the middle of them all is where the poor dragon assistant is still tied up and trapped. The next day at school, a loud scream echoes through the halls as President Kim finally finds out the dragon has been missing since yesterday. Muva only mentions the disappearance because he assumed the little guy had just gone to stay at her place. But seeing her total meltdown, he realizes things are much worse. Kim loses her cool and starts tearing the classroom apart, convinced the lizard is just hiding or napping somewhere. When she strikes out there, she rushes off to check the rest of the school, completely unaware that the person sitting right behind Mu is the one who actually snatched her pet. Meanwhile, in another classroom, Kim bursts through the door yelling the dragon's name and checking every single cubby and corner. Kang happens to be sitting in that class, and like everyone else, he is totally distracted by her frantic searching. A few minutes later, Mu is relaxing at his desk when the door creaks open again. This time, the teacher is literally carrying the class president back in like she weighs nothing, telling her to sit down and stop causing trouble. She slumps into her seat right in front of Mu and sadly reports that she searched every inch of the building with zero luck. Mu remains pretty calm throughout the drama because he already knew the lizard wasn't at school. He casually mentions that he actually lost the dragon after leaving the arena, which makes Kim pretty annoyed that he didn't say something sooner. He pulls out a hand-drawn map to show her exactly where he last saw his assistant. As soon as she recognizes the map she drew herself, she snatches it and tries to bolt out of the room again. The teacher catches her almost immediately and drags her back to her seat, warning her that things will get serious if she tries to ditch class again. Mook doesn't really offer any comfort because his mind is stuck on his unfinished business with the Ghidorah gang. He is annoyed that his body is in such rough shape after pushing his muscles to the limit, and he knows he needs another healing orb to get back into fighting form. To get that orb, he has to find the dragon first. When the final bell finally rings, Kim wastes no time grabbing Mu's aching hand and pulling him toward the exit. On their way out, they bump into Kang and Daljun. Kim starts explaining the situation, but Daljun cuts her off to complain about her own missing wallet. Kim briefly forgets about the lizard and asks if Daljun is Kang's girlfriend, which leads to both of them making grossed-out faces and denying it immediately. Kim apologizes and then starts crying, begging them for help to find her beloved dragon. Kang has seen the creature before but is still a bit confused by the whole thing. Mugan tries to explain that the dragon used to be huge but shrunk down, but he quickly realizes the other three have already wandered off to start the search without him. While they go off to do the heavy lifting, Mu decides to focus on his own recovery. Meanwhile, over in the school bathroom, Joe Yang is multitasking by taking care of business and playing a game on his phone. He is using the exact same gambling app that the thief used to lose all that money. Suddenly, there is a loud bang as Joe Yang headbutts the stall door out of pure hype. It turns out he actually hit the jackpot on his last possible attempt and scored a massive reward. He is absolutely over the moon, thinking his luck has finally turned around. He decides he should cash out right away before he does something stupid and loses it all again. But when the big guy finally finds the button to claim his reward, his happy grin freezes because something is definitely off. He tries again just to make sure, and this time his suspicion starts to feel like the cold, hard truth. A wave of sweat rolls down his face as he realizes the game is a total scam. 6 days later, the scene shifts back to Mu, who is acting a little wild again. Instead of joining the search for the poor dragon, he is just standing in the middle of a path, staring at the teacher with his signature creepy grin. It looks like he is clearly trying to provoke the man and maybe even start a fight. Meanwhile, President Kim and Daljun have spent the last 6 days launching a massive search party, looking everywhere near the spot where the dragon was last seen. Kang helps out as much as he can too. But even with all their effort, they still haven't found a single trace of the lizard, not even a stray scale. By the 6th day, the girls are totally exhausted and finally find a place to sit and catch their breath. President Kim feels guilty and apologizes to Daljun for dragging her into all this trouble, but Daljun just smiles and tells her it is no big deal. Still, as grateful as Kim is to her friend, she is equally frustrated with Mu. She blames him for not lifting a finger to help, even though he is the dragon's owner and the one who lost it in the first place. Wanting to do something nice to make up for the help, Kim offers to grab some drinks and tells Daljun to just relax until she gets back. What Kim doesn't realize is that just moments after she leaves, a suspicious man appears behind Daljun, who still has no clue she is in any danger. From the ID card in the man's hand, it is pretty obvious what he is doing there. A few minutes later, Kim comes back holding the drinks, but she immediately feels like something is wrong because Daljun is gone. Before we get into that, let's clear up Mu's weird behavior with the teacher. It turns out he wasn't trying to start a fight at all. Mu is just really impressed by the teacher's well-trained body. The teacher is totally thrown off by Mu's odd behavior and has no idea the kid is just checking out his muscles. For a split second, the teacher almost loses his cool when Mu touches his chest and comments on how hard he must have been working out, but he decides to let it go since Mu actually noticed his hard work. The real shock comes when Mu suddenly announces he is joining the teacher's training session without even asking for permission. Meanwhile, the scene changes to the pawn shop where the guy in charge is holding Daljuna's ID card. Daljun is there and alive, but she is screaming at him to give her card back. The man gives her a scary look and claims she left the card as collateral for a loan, which totally shocks her since she has never even set foot in the place. The boss suddenly steps in and punches the desk to get everyone's attention, demanding to know why she is pretending not to remember when it is time to pay up. Daljun realizes arguing is useless, so she just asks how much it will cost to get the card back. The employee tells her the total is 550,000 won, including interest. Daljun tries to act cool and says she can pay them back soon, hoping they will just hand over the card, but it isn't that easy. The intimidating guy just tosses her ID into a drawer and tells her she has 1 week to pay up before they come looking for her. Daljun storms out and slams the door as hard as she can, which really annoys the employee. The boss thinks the employee is mad at him, causing the man to start sweating and rush to explain himself. The following night, the same employee finishes work, locks the office, and tosses the key into a flower pot before heading out. He grumbles about taking orders from a kid, unaware that Daljun is hiding upstairs waiting for him to leave. Once he is gone, she grabs the key and slips into the office to steal her ID back, but she doesn't realize that someone else has just quietly entered the building behind her. Pretty, without wasting any time, Daljun heads straight for the desk and yanks the drawer open. It doesn't take her long to find her ID card, and once it is finally in her hands, she is the happiest person alive. She quickly decides to get out of there before anyone shows up, but as she walks past a commode, a loud noise from inside grabs her attention. Even though she is super nervous, her curiosity gets the better of her, and she just has to know what caused the sound. She carefully opens the door and discovers something locked up in a cage. It is too dark to see clearly at first, but then a pair of glowing eyes pops out. It is the poor dragon, who immediately starts shouting to be set free. Daljun has never come face to face with a dragon before, and the sight of a little lizard with wings and horns making such a ruckus scares her half to death. She instinctively takes a few steps back and accidentally bumps into something big and soft. She turns around and just freezes when she sees Zhou Yang standing right behind her. Since she doesn't recognize him, seeing a stranger in this situation makes her forget all about the dragon for a second. Zhou Yang is just as surprised as she is, and he quickly covers her mouth to stop her from screaming. He realizes pretty fast that she is the girl whose ID he used to borrow money, and he explains that he is also there just to get his own card back. He suggests they both grab their stuff, keep things quiet, and get out fast. Daljun nods and picks up both her ID and the dragon, remembering the missing posters Kim had drawn. As she leaves, she thinks about how terrible these people are for stealing IDs and locking up pets, totally unaware that a security camera caught her every move. The next morning, Daljun spots Kim on her way to school and runs over to surprise her. Kim is shocked to see her friend safe and sound after she went missing the day before. While Kim tries to explain how worried she was, Daljun just smiles and unzips her backpack. The dragon's hands pop out, followed by his head, as the little guy gasps for air after being stuck in the bag. Kim is overjoyed and scoops him up for a huge hug, but the dragon catches a familiar scent nearby. He wriggles out of her arms and dashes straight toward Mole, who is just walking by. The little lizard latches onto Mole's arm, not realizing that Mole is already at his limit and covered in sores from training. Without thinking, Mole swings his hand so hard that the poor dragon falls to the ground. Instead of being happy to see his assistant, Mole just tells him to be more careful because his whole body hurts. Kim rushes over to blame Mole for being so mean, but he doesn't care about her complaints at all. Meanwhile, things are getting intense at the pawn shop. The staff has already noticed the missing IDs and the dragon. After checking the tapes, the boss sees exactly how Daljun and Zhou Yang snuck in. He is absolutely furious and almost hits his employee for being so careless with the keys. The fact that two high school kids challenged his authority is almost more than he can handle. A few hours later at school, a bunch of students are playing soccer during gym class. One kid gets excited and takes a shot at the goal, completely unaware that Mo is standing right in the way. To everyone's shock, Mo doesn't even flinch and lets the ball smack him right in the face. He doesn't really know the rules of soccer, but the main reason he lets it happen is that he never backs down from any kind of attack. As the ball drops and reveals his bloody nose, Mo suddenly charges at the bald boy who kicked it. The boy has no clue why Mo didn't just dodge or why he is now rushing at him like a madman. Before the boy can even process what is happening, Mo reaches him and lands a solid punch right in his stomach, totally catching him off guard. The kid drops to the ground instantly, and Mo stands over him like a boss. The other students quickly realize that if they don't jump in right now, Mo might actually end up wrecking the guy for good. They all rush in to stop him and things get super chaotic, so much so that the teacher on the other side finally notices the brawl. Mo doesn't care about the crowd at all and keeps fighting anyone who tries to get in his way. He is actually having a blast because he thinks all this madness is just a normal part of gym class. Meanwhile, a little farther away, Kim and the dragon find a quiet spot to chill. Kim isn't even paying attention to Mo's fight and hands the dragon her old phone, telling him he can use it to text or call her whenever he needs something. Since neither Mo nor the dragon has a phone, she figures it is a good move for them to have one just in case. The dragon looks pretty surprised as he checks out the device while Kim chats away about Wi-Fi and messenger apps, though he has absolutely no clue what she is talking about. Kim can tell he is totally lost and gets ready to explain the basics, but the dragon's attention suddenly snaps to something else nearby. A few meters behind them, Lee's old bully is sitting there playing that same stupid gambling game and losing his money like usual. The dragon recognizes him immediately as the guy who kidnapped him and kept him locked up. Without thinking twice, he drops the phone and dashes straight toward the bully. Before the guy can even ask what is going on, the dragon leaps onto his face and bites his forehead as hard as he can. The bully freaks out and flails around, doing everything possible to pry the little lizard off before things get worse. After a struggle, he finally manages to toss the dragon to the ground. Not far from there, Moo is walking with the teacher, who is doing his best to explain that Moo can't just attack anyone who touches him. Right at that moment, the fleeing bully accidentally bumps into Moo, loses his balance, and crashes to the ground. Moo looks down at him and a huge grin spreads across his face as he decides it is gym time all over again. He pounces on the boy and starts beating him up without holding back until the teacher finally has to physically pull him away. Moo's exciting day ends way sooner than he hoped, and on the way home, Kim decides to walk with him, while Moo daydreams about having a gym class like that every day. Kim tries to explain that real PE is nothing like that. Just ahead of them, Daljun and her classmate are chatting and laughing, while Kang walks behind them rubbing his sore neck. Daljun's brother is also there, deep in a phone call. Out of nowhere, Zhou Yang steps into Daljun's path and shouts at her to get her attention. He looks like he's been through the ringer, bruised and beat up, and starts demanding her student ID. He blabs about how they both got caught on the security cameras and says he needs to return her card to the people looking for it. Then when Daljun hesitates, Zhou Yang gets frustrated and starts yelling, even trying to dig through her backpack to find the ID himself. This commotion catches the eye of Kang and Haijun, who both snap when they see a big guy hassling Daljun. Fueled by protective energy, they charge at Zhou Yang as fast as they can, rushing right past a confused Mu. Zhou Yang keeps warning Daljun about the consequences, but before he can do anything, Kang and Haijun leap into the air to land a double strike. However, out of nowhere, Mu appears and blocks both of their punches at the same time. As expected, Mu doesn't step in to play the hero for Zhou Yang. He only wants to settle his own unfinished business with the guy one-on-one. Both Haijun and Kang are completely dumbfounded, never expecting Mu to suddenly jump in and save their target. They just stand there stunned while even Zhou Yang looks confused, having no clue who these new people are. But when he takes a closer look at Mu, something starts triggering his memory, reminding him of their last encounter, which definitely didn't end well for him. Sensing an opening, Zhou Yang quickly grabs Daljun and makes a run for it. Somehow, he actually pulls it off while Mu just stands there like a totally clueless goof. Daljun shouts for help, but Kang and Haijun react much faster and immediately take off after them. The moment Mu sees them chasing Zhou Yang, he assumes they're trying to steal his fight, so he starts sprinting too, yelling that he called dibs first. But it doesn't take long before Zhou Yang ducks into a nearby alley, hoping to lose the three lunatics chasing him. Unfortunately for him, all three follow him straight in. Whether by accident or fate, Zhou Yang soon finds himself cornered with nowhere left to escape. Kang instantly recognizes the place, realizing it's the same alley where he and Mu first ended up when Daljun was being held captive before. Zhou Yang suddenly drops Daljun off his shoulder, letting her hit the pavement with a painful thud. She lands hard on her butt, but at least she's finally free. Tossing his backpack aside, Zhou Yang takes up a fighting stance, basically daring all three of them to come at him together. Mu steps forward and announces that he'll fight Zhou Yang alone. Haijun, who has only met Mu a few times, shoots him an irritated glare and starts yelling at him. From his perspective, Mu is fooling around and risking his sister's life just to have a one-on-one fight. Mu can tell Haijun is genuinely furious, but instead of apologizing, he casually challenges Haijun to fight him after he's done with Zhou Yang. That distraction gives Zhou Yang the perfect chance to strike. He grabs Mu's shoulder and squeezes so hard that pain shoots through Mu's entire body. Even though the agony makes the right side of his body tremble, Mu keeps that same creepy grin plastered across his face. He manages to break free for a moment, but Zhou Yang immediately grabs him again, slips a foot behind his leg, and uses a quick judo sweep to launch Mu into the air. Mu slams into the ground with a heavy drop, his eyes widening in shock. In the middle of the chaos, Haijun rushes over not to help Mu but to grab Daljun's hand and run away with her. In his mind, avoiding the fight entirely is the safest option. Zhou Yang notices them escaping, but he can't stop them without releasing Mu. Surprisingly, Mu feels completely fine after the brutal throw. He realizes all the insane training with his teacher has turned his back muscles into a natural shield. With a quick flex, he snaps his body upright and rises back to his feet without even using his hands, while Zhou Yang stares at him in disbelief. Kang calmly asks Mu if he wants help finishing Zhou Yang off, but Mu confidently refuses, insisting he has everything under control. Unfortunately, he loses focus for a split second again. Zhou Yang instantly tries to capitalize, swinging for Mu's head, but Mu barely dodges in time. Without hesitation, Zhou Yang switches tactics, grabbing Mu by the arm and shirt before slamming him into the ground again like he weighs absolutely nothing. Weirdly, Mu still doesn't feel much pain. What he fails to realize until the very last second is that his poor dragon companion has basically been acting as a living airbag the entire time, silently taking the full impact of every attack for him. When Zhou Yang's foot suddenly comes flying toward his face, Mu quickly jumps backward to create distance. This time, his expression turns completely serious. He becomes convinced that Zhou Yang is deliberately targeting his assistant, and that thought genuinely pisses him off. Acting like he truly cares about his little winged buddy, Mu launches a flurry of punches at Zhou Yang, not giving the guy a single moment to breathe. Zhou Yang is clearly struggling and spends all his energy just shielding his face from those heavy blows. Under the constant onslaught, the big guy starts feeling totally helpless, wondering how someone as scrawny as Mu can pack such a massive punch. Mu keeps swinging and yelling that this is payback for the dragon, but honestly, it looks like he is just having the time of his life and using the lizard as a flimsy excuse to go wild. Zhou Yang realizes he has to do something fast before he completely loses control of the fight. He decides to use his massive size as a weapon and rushes at Mu, hoping to body slam him into the pavement. Mu's excited grin vanishes instantly when he sees the giant coming at him like a human boulder. Since he has nowhere to run, Mu makes a split-second decision to stand his ground and face the impact head-on. He braces his legs as hard as he can, but the weight difference is just too much to handle. Zhou Yang pushes him back with so much force that Mu is tossed aside, though he manages to land near Kang with a surprisingly graceful move. Kang is still just chilling and watching the fight from the sidelines. Knowing Mu is a total loose cannon, Kang asks one more time if he needs help taking down this gorilla. Instead of answering, Mu just hands the dragon over to Kang and tells him to watch the little guy. Mu acts tough, but deep down he is still trying to figure out how to beat someone that big. The challenge actually fires him up, so he rushes back in with a new plan to target Zhou Yang's weak spots. Since he is much faster, he zips into a blind spot and lands quick punches on his side and thighs, nearly knocking the giant off his feet. Starting to panic, Zhou Yang realizes he can't keep up with Mu's sneaky rat tactics, so he pulls a fast one. He points behind Mu and yells that a 2-on-1 fight isn't fair. Our not-so-bright hero totally falls for the bait and spins around to tell Kang to stay out of it, only to see that Kang hasn't moved an inch. Before Mu can realize he's been tricked, Zhou Yang is already behind him, locking in a tight rear naked choke. Zhou Yang is super confident now, figuring Mu won't last 15 seconds before passing out from the pressure. When Kang sees Mu's face turning colors, he gets worried that Zhou Yang might actually break the kid's neck and starts moving in to help. But right as he gets close, Mu summons enough strength to choke out a warning for Kang to stay back. Kang freezes and notices that despite the struggle, Mu still has that creepy grin on his face. Deciding to trust his friend, Kang steps back and lets the fight continue. Mu knows he is about to black out, but he has one more trick up his sleeve. He tenses his neck muscles to make them thick, then suddenly contracts them so tightly that his neck shrinks to half its size. This creates just enough space for him to slide his hands into the gap. Using his forearms like levers, Mu grips Zhou Yang's arms and squeezes with everything he has left. The pain is too much for Zhou Yang to handle, and he is forced to let go. Neither Zhou Yang nor Kang can believe Mu pulled off such a crazy move to escape. As Mu stands free, the big guy only gets angrier, making his next moves even easier for Mu to predict. Now, just by watching him, Mu can tell that Zhou Yang is finally at his limit. The big guy looks like a massive boulder that only needs one solid hit in the right spot to completely fall apart. Mu clenches his fist and gets ready to finish the job, but he isn't going to make it a simple punch. A few days ago, Mu spent some time training with the class teacher at the gym. The teacher decided to show off by doing some heavy squats, demonstrating how he built up his leg strength. Mu watched closely, curious if the exercise really worked, and soon decided to give the barbell a try himself. The teacher was shocked when Mu stepped up to the rack, thinking the kid would give up immediately under all that weight. To his surprise, Mu lifted the bar and took a step forward without even breaking a sweat. Even though Mu's legs started to wobble and bow out like parentheses, he didn't look worried at all. The teacher tried to talk him out of it, fearing Mu would wreck his knees or back, but he wasn't listening. What the teacher didn't know was that Mu has the experience of someone who has been around for 3 million years. Mu has complete control over his body, right down to his muscle fibers and blood flow. Almost 1 million years ago, he mastered a technique that allows him to move strength from one part of his body to another instantly. Back then, he could smash a building as big as the Egyptian pyramids with a single strike. Now, right in front of the stunned teacher, Mu started cranking out squats faster than the man himself by shifting his muscle fibers down to his legs. Back in the alley, Mu decides to use that same logic again. He shifts the muscle fibers from his left arm over to his right, making his right arm nearly double in size and power. Kang watches closely to see if Mu is actually okay after nearly being choked out, but Mu doesn't even answer him. Instead, a memory of the technique Kang used during their first fight flashes in Mu's mind. He decides that copying Kang's move is the most effective way to end this. Mimicking that style perfectly, Mu throws a heavy punch straight at Zhou Yang's midsection. This time, he doesn't care about speed, he focuses on pure raw power. Zhou Yang tries to block with both hands, but it doesn't make a bit of difference. Mu's fist shoots through his defense like a missile and shatters the giant's will. Zhou Yang blacks out instantly and collapses to the ground in a heap. Mu stands over him for a second, feeling pretty triumphant after taking down a guy twice his size. But it only takes a moment for him to remember his tradition. Just like with his previous opponents, Mu hops over to the unconscious Zhou Yang, tears off a piece of his ear, and marks him as officially neutered. A few blocks away, Haijun and Daojun are heading home. Haijun decides it is finally time to ask his sister why that guy was chasing her and causing so much trouble. Daojun knows how much her brother cares, so she apologizes for getting him involved and starts explaining the whole mess. She tells him about the day he first saved her from thugs and how she accidentally dropped her wallet during the escape. Somehow, her ID card ended up at a shady pawn shop with a massive debt of 550,000 won attached to her name. No matter how much she argued, the shop owners wouldn't believe she wasn't the one who borrowed the cash. She finishes by describing how she snuck in to get her card back, only to run right into Yangzhou while trying to make her getaway. After hearing the whole story, Haijun is absolutely furious, almost to the point of losing total control. He usually tries to avoid fights and stay low-key, but he realizes now it is time to handle things differently. He pulls out his phone and calls the class president to cancel today's meeting. A few minutes later, he storms into the pawn shop, grabbing everyone's attention. The boss is clearly annoyed and turns around to see who is barging in, only to get his answer with a solid punch right to his face. Haijun doesn't hold back at all. He keeps pummeling the boss while the employee in the black suit just stands there stunned. For a second, the employee actually looks happy because someone is finally giving his bully boss a taste of his own medicine. Between the heavy blows, the boss manages to glance at his employee and tells him to do something before he gets seriously hurt. Not wanting to get in trouble, the employee quickly grabs the phone and calls for backup. Two massive guys come charging in from the next room, ready to teach Haijun a lesson for his wild behavior. But Haijun just stares them down, completely unafraid. Normally, he is the calm type, but something inside him is changing, revealing a side with the blood of the very demon he hates most. Without any hesitation, he leaves the boss on the sofa and leaps at the newcomers, determined to take them all down. It takes Haijun less than a couple of minutes to wreck everyone in the room, and he barely gets scratched himself. One of the big guys is even thrown right through the door. Still catching his breath, Haijun demands to know why his sister was being forced to pay money they never borrowed. The boss tries to act tough and warns him about messing with people like him, but Haijun clearly doesn't care about the consequences. After making it clear he will punish anyone who bothers Daojun again, he leaves with a final warning. The boss is left fuming on the floor, swearing he will make Haijun regret this humiliation. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Kang and Mu are walking down the street. Mu is feeling great after his win against Zhou Yang, while Kang just stares at him in disbelief. Finally, Kang asks how Mu made his hand grow twice as big before the final hit. Mu decided to show him the trick by shifting his muscle fibers from one arm to the other, making his left arm swell up right in front of Kang's eyes. Kang tries to copy the move, but all he manages to do is make his muscles twitch awkwardly. Mu explains that you have to learn to actually talk to your muscles and listen to each one separately, like being the boss of a bunch of stubborn workers. Kang looks even more confused and starts trying to communicate with his own muscles, not realizing it took Mu hundreds of years to master this. At that moment, the dragon finally speaks up, asking why Mu is teaching secret techniques to a regular human. Mu just shrugs and says that if Kang gets stronger, it will only make things more interesting for him. He admits he needs tougher opponents to level up faster so he can eventually face Lucifer when the time comes. While the dragon is confident that the Earth barrier will keep Lucifer out, Mu believes the demon will eventually find a way through. Determined not to get crushed in that showdown, Mu announces that he is going to focus on training way more seriously from now on. The scene shifts a few hours later, where the boy in the purple hoodie is meeting with the real boss of the area, who also happens to be his uncle. The kid starts complaining about how tough his life is, grumbling that he is doing his best but still struggling to keep the pawn shop afloat. He even points out how his uncle gets to make easy money from those gambling websites while he does the dirty work. The uncle, famous for his flashy gold teeth, just smiles at his nephew and offers some encouragement. He tells the boy that every job has its ups and downs and that he shouldn't be a whiner. After all, the gold teeth boss plans to hand over the entire business to him one day, so the kid needs to prove he can actually handle things. Still, the uncle is a bit disappointed that his nephew is struggling to manage a small shop where the customers are mostly just high schoolers. To help him relax and think bigger, the uncle leads him out of the room to show him how the real pros operate. On a different floor of the same building, things are much darker for the three employees who were beat up by Haijun earlier. They have been stripped and roughed up by the big boss's men as punishment for losing to a single high school student. Suddenly, a man with a club orders the blonde-haired employee to open his mouth and tosses a mysterious blue pill inside. Two men in black suits then drag the blonde guy away, giving him a serious warning not to spit the pill out no matter what. Meanwhile, the CEO uncle takes his nephew down to the lower floors in the elevator. He explains that while he backed the kid's pawn shop, the business model was flawed because high schoolers don't have real money. According to the CEO, the only way to get rich is to get into the big leagues. When the elevator doors slide open, the nephew is completely stunned by what lies ahead. They are standing above a massive underground arena packed with hundreds of wealthy people waiting for a fight to start. The uncle tells him that big money only comes with big games, hoping to inspire the kid to stop thinking small. Just then, a fighter enters the ring, and the nephew realizes with a shock that it is his own blonde employee from the pawn shop. The guy looks terrifying now, with purple veins popping out all over his body. The kid wonders if the guy was always this ripped and he just hadn't noticed, totally unaware of the boost he just swallowed. As the match kicks off, the blonde guy moves at lightning speed. He grabs his opponent and lands a punch so powerful that it shatters every bone in its path. The poor fighter doesn't even have time to scream before a second punch crushes his skull in less than a second. Even with all that overwhelming power, the blonde guy stays fully conscious and seems to be loving every second of the violence. Up in the VIP section, the CEO pulls out one of those blue pills to show his nephew. He explains that this little pill allows him to decide who wins any match, which lets him rake in massive amounts of money from betting. The nephew just stares at the pill, looking absolutely terrified that something so small can be that dangerous. A few days later at the gym, Mu is finishing up his daily routine with a heavy set of squats. After he racks the barbell, his entire body looks way bigger, with veins popping out like a professional bodybuilder. Mu turns to his teacher and mentions that he feels amazing and that his whole body is tingling like crazy. The teacher is totally at a loss for words, staring at Mu's insane transformation. He blurs out that he has seen plenty of gym junkies, but never anyone who bulked up this much in such a short time. Even though they work out together every day, the teacher can't help but wonder if Mu has secretly started using some serious supplements or performance-enhancing drugs to get those results. Sweat is still rolling down Mu's face as he tries to explain things, especially since he doesn't even know what performance-enhancing drugs are. Before he can get a single word out, the teacher cuts him off and starts lecturing him about the massive dangers of using that kind of stuff. The man only stops when Mu claims he is still weak because he feels he still isn't strong enough to face Lucifer. Later that day, as the sun is setting, Mu wanders back to the area where he once fought in the arena. The dragon is right there with him, wearing Kim's phone like a belt around his waist. Suddenly, the phone starts ringing and vibrating, which makes the little dragon a bit jumpy. Remembering what Kim taught him, the dragon answers the call and presses the phone against Mu's ear. It is Kim, and she immediately starts yelling, wanting to know where he has been and why he hasn't let her see the dragon for a whole week. Mu doesn't bother with a long explanation and just says he is there to check the results of his hard training. A few minutes later, in the same alley where Mu got wrecked by that little girl before, the two girls are hanging out again. They are feeling pretty good after earning some money from their stream participants, totally unaware that Mu has already tracked them down. They sense someone nearby and turn to see Mu standing there with a wicked grin, telling them it has been a long time. The small girl, Chunu, immediately jumps up and stuffs her money away, wondering why Mu would show up again after the lesson she gave him last time. Without even waiting for her friend, Chunu dashes forward and launches herself into the air. She lands a heavy knee right into Mu's chest, thinking she has nailed the move just like before. But this time, Mu only takes a single step back with his hands still casually in his pockets. The dragon is worried, but Mu just flashes his usual creepy grin to show he is perfectly fine. Chunu is shocked that her finishing move didn't even faze him. Mu isn't about to make the same mistake twice, so he tenses his muscles to protect his vitals before charging in for real. Using his new strength, Mu moves at lightning speed and swings a flurry of punches at Chunu from every direction. The little girl finds herself in a tough spot, barely able to defend against the onslaught. Mu realizes the tables have turned and follows up with a heavy kick to her side. He lands it hard, but to his surprise, Chunu barely seems bothered. She actually manages to grab his foot in mid-air and slams her elbow right into his knee. The hit catches a weak spot, and Mu struggles to keep his balance as she hops back. Realizing she can't take him lightly anymore, Chunu stops holding back. She dashes at Mu while he is favoring his knee and hits him with a series of sharp elbow strikes to his jaw and side. She goes all out, and every move lands perfectly, making the dragon worry for his master's safety. However, her confidence crumbles when she sees that Mu is still standing and smiling. He managed to tense his muscles just in time to soften the impact. Mu takes advantage of her shock and grabs her by the collar, slamming her toward the ground. He then shifts all his muscle power to his lower body to move even faster, before transferring it all back to his upper body for a massive body slam. Chunu is thrown back several meters and slams into her friend, the Taekwondo girl from before. Seeing her friend in trouble, the tall girl jumps into the fight and starts hitting Mu with her long-range kicks. Mu blocks most of them and realizes he needs to get close to take away her advantage. He leaps forward and swings a punch straight at her face, not holding back at all. Just before the hit lands, Chunu jumps in and stops him with an elbow to his face. Even though the hit is brutal, Mua doesn't back down and tries to grab her head. But the tall girl is ready and stops him cold with a solid kick to the face. The two girls realize they can't beat Mua one-on-one and decide to team up, throwing a constant stream of attacks from every direction. Mua is pushed back, but he feels relieved because his training is actually paying off. To turn the tide and make things a 2-on-2 fight, he grabs the dragon by the tail and starts spinning him around like a helicopter, charging at the shocked girls. The poor dragon is screaming the entire time as Mu swings him through the air like a living weapon. The two girls on the other side get absolutely hammered by the force of the swinging dragon and find themselves being pushed back hard. The girl is totally furious watching this madness, but Mu doesn't slow down for a second. Fed up with the nonsense, the small girl launches a powerful punch straight at Mu's hand, forcing him to let go of the tail. This opens the door for a full combo, and she unleashes a rapid storm of punches and kicks on Mu from every angle. The dragon flies off into the air, but even after taking all those hits, Mu doesn't budge a single step. Instead, he just adjusts his position and grabs the dragon's tail again. The small girl decides she needs to close the distance to stop him from swinging the dragon effectively. She charges in with a sharp, dangerous uppercut aimed at Mu's face, which forces the dragon to slip out of his grip again. The dragon spins through the air and kicks the other girl in the face, while Mu headbutts the small one. Mu's expression changes almost instantly, sending her crashing to the ground. He explains that she totally underestimated him, because he had already reinforced his neck muscles, which is why her earlier hit didn't do any real damage. The small girl goes down hard, and seeing her, the tall one realizes right away that winning this fight is just not happening. She needs to get out fast, so she calls out to her companion and starts moving toward Mu. She advances rapidly, but Mu manages to grab her knee as she tries to hit him. He then copies her exact move and counters by driving his elbow straight into her knee. The impact sends sharp pain shooting through her instantly, making her scream in frustration. The girl prepares a second kick and declares he isn't getting away this time, firing it straight at his face. Mu has already read the move and catches her leg mid-air with a tight grip, leaving her dangling in the air. He knows he is going to show her an ancient joint lock and spins her with a sharp motion that sends her cap flying. Before she can even process what is happening, Mu has her locked in an Egyptian lock that completely immobilizes her body. He slowly starts twisting her leg further, increasing the pain until it becomes absolutely unbearable. She screams and immediately surrenders, begging him to let her go. Just as Mu announces it is time to give her his neutered mark, she acts fast. Using the leg Mu is still holding, she rotates with full force and lands a powerful kick on him before pulling back. She is clearly in pain but keeps going, which Mu finds pretty amusing. He advances toward her with an intimidating look, but then she suddenly flings a handful of money directly at his face. The bills scatter everywhere, and Mu's eyes instinctively follow the money as it falls. In that split second, the girl disappears completely. By the time Mu looks back, she is gone, leaving him genuinely annoyed that he didn't get to mark her. He just shrugs it off, figured he'll get her next time. Meanwhile, the tall girl is shown running away while carrying the small girl and checking to see if she is okay. With this defeat, another faction has fallen, leaving only 3 groups left in the school. The scene shifts to the outside of a hospital where Zhou Yang, the leader of the first group Mu wrecked, is finally limping out. He is absolutely fuming, ranting to himself about how he's going to track down the guys who beat him and get every bit of his money back. In a fit of rage, he kicks a small stone that happens to bounce off the foot of a guy from Cuckoo School standing nearby. The Cuckoo student turns around and starts acting all high and mighty, asking Zhou Yang where he's been hiding and why he looks like a total mess. The two of them start arguing immediately, with Zhou Yang telling Cuckoo Guy to stay out of his business. He claims he's in a terrible mood and could easily trash him right there if he wanted. The Cuckoo Guy isn't backing down and calls him all talk, but things get physical when they start fighting over territory. Zhou Yang grabs him by the collar, but the Cuckoo just smirks and says that was a huge mistake. He pops one of those mysterious blue pills into his mouth, chews it up and tells Zhou Yang to brace himself. His muscles tighten up instantly, and his body starts reacting to the chemicals. A second later, he lands a punch so brutal that Zhou Yang is sent flying through a wall, ending up right back in the hospital he just left. The next day, the two girls are walking along feeling the sting of their recent loss. The tall one even complains about losing her favorite cap during the chaos. Suddenly, they spot that same guy from Cuckoo School. The small girl asks what he's doing there, but he doesn't give a straight answer. Instead, he just shows them a blue pill, eats it, and gives them a wild, dangerous grin. He tells them it is their unlucky day because none of them are getting away from him. After his unhinged transformation, he looks right at the small girl and says her time is officially up. He launches at her instantly, ignoring her shouts and going straight for her face. She manages to dodge with some seriously quick reflexes, but he just knows that her speed is useless. He goes at her again, but the tall girl lands a powerful kick straight to his face. The small girl is shocked by the move and jumps in to help, smashing him in the head with her elbow. But as soon as the hit connects, things take a dark turn. Chana's arm starts throbbing with insane pain and she begins to shake because it feels like she just struck a block of solid steel. The guy's head didn't even budge from the impact. He calmly confirms that his body is basically solid, and then grabs the tall girl's leg with a crushing grip. He starts hammering her leg with repeated punches until it literally cracks, causing her to scream and collapse to the ground. The small girl is in a nightmare spot now, and seeing her friend go down makes her completely lose it. She starts swearing and throwing every punch and kick she has, targeting every single weak spot she can think of. But no matter how much she hits him, he just grabs her face and squeezes hard, calling her a tiny pest. Just as she is about to pass out from the crushing pain, he lifts her up and slams her into the wall so hard that the concrete actually cracks. He says he is finally starting to have some fun, leaving her knocked out cold while the two of them eventually have to scramble toward a hospital. After walking a bit far, the fighter meets up with the head guy who has been busy watching the fight. The fighter is straight up grinning, bragging about how the pill is absolute fire and makes him feel like he has infinite cheat codes for strength. The hooded guy doesn't care about the hype and just reminds him about the favor he owes him now. The fighter is super confident and boasts that he will crush his target in a heartbeat, but also curious about why don't the hooded figure himself take the pill and beat the crap out of all. The scene then shifts to the chairman, who drops some serious knowledge about how these pills actually work. He explains that the crazier the power boost, the nastier the side effects get. The first dose just turns a person into a total menace, but if someone is reckless enough to take it multiple times, they hit a point he calls a boom. He doesn't show exactly what that looks like yet, but he hints that everyone will understand the horror once it finally happens. While the hooded guy keeps capping and insisting there are 0 side effects, a familiar foot appears on the screen. It is Mu. Then he has arrived at the spot looking for the tall girl. Mu realizes the person he is hunting has already moved on, meaning he just missed out on a legendary fight, and he definitely looks like he's going to regret being late to the party. Back at the school, the class president is giggling to herself while hiding the dragon in her bag, completely glued to a live stream about the school's top fighters. She is way too hyped for the upcoming drama. While Mu sits nearby looking intense and pressuring her for a map, she mocks him for being a total boomer who can't even use a smartphone. But she eventually gives in and pulls up a navigation app. The dragon peeks out from the bag and watches as the god finally gets the digital directions he needs. Following the GPS, Mu walks toward the massive school building with a green hat on his head, ready to hunt down his missing target. At the gates, he runs into the tall fighter, who is looking absolutely wrecked and limping on a crutch with her leg wrapped in heavy bandages. Mu gives her a small smirk and she notices her hat, which sends her into total shock. Taking Mu to the hospital, she explains that some complete psycho trashed her and her friend the night before, and even though she reported the guy to the cops, he has vanished without a trace. Mu looks pretty unimpressed, and as he hears a weird sound, he pulls back a medical curtain and finds Zhou Yang wrapped up like a mummy and looking totally trashed. The second Zhou Yang sees them, he bolts upright and starts screaming Dukion, the cuckoo guy's name, with pure rage. He gets so worked up that he nearly goes into shock, and the nurses have to scramble to get him back on the mattress while yelling about missing painkillers. Once he calms down, he warns Mu that Dukion used to be a total loser, but has transformed into a deadly monster because of some sketchy pills. Instead of being scared, Mu actually starts blushing with excitement because he is finally getting the high-stakes fight he wanted. The scene shifts back to the school, where the bodybuilding teacher is forcing Mu to haul a massive stack of boxes. Mu just carries them while his mind is stuck on finding his target, totally unaware that Dukion is already in the building. Dukion is creeping up the stairwell and staring at a photo of Heijun on his phone, looking completely unhinged with a red, drug-flushed face. He peeks through a classroom window with a predatory gaze, just waiting for the right moment to strike. Below him, the other students are going about their day completely oblivious to the purple-haired monster hiding in the shadows. Inside the classroom, Heijun is busy with his work just as Dukion finds him, takes the pill and bursts through the door with a massive bang. Dukion locks eyes with his target and declares that Heijun is going to die today, looking totally lost to the influence of the pills. To show he isn't playing around, he grabs a terrified student and tosses him aside like trash before lunging at Heijun with a heavy chair. The chair shatters against the wall and sends glass flying everywhere, causing the entire class to lose their minds and scream for help. Heijun demands to know who this freak is, but Dukion just screams for silence and throws a heavy punch powered by eerie purple mana. The blow lands with a sickening sound and sends Heijun reeling back into the lockers, while the monster guy stays right on top of him with supernatural speed. Despite Heijun managing to dodge the strike, its power sent him crashing through the locker room. Heijun tries to keep it together by telling himself this is just self-defense, but he knows he is dead if he just stands there. Thinking fast, he lands a hit that makes Dukion spit out saliva, and for a moment the guy throws more in a frantic blur. Hagun is desperate to put the monster down and lands another heavy shot, but the purple-haired freak just stands there with a creepy smirk. Dukion starts laughing hysterically and claims the punches actually tickle, which makes Hagun shocked. Dukion casually reaches out with blinding speed and grabs his arm, tightening his grip like a vice until Heijun screams in agony. The rest of the class can only watch in absolute terror, wondering when a teacher is going to show up to stop the slaughter. Suddenly, Heijun's sister notices her brother in the fight and a pink slipper comes flying through the air, smacking Dukion right in the back. The monster stops and looks genuinely confused, turning around to see who dared to mess with him. The girl screams for him to let Heijun go, but the guy just gives her a mocking smile and prepares to finish her. Before he can move, a massive fist comes out of nowhere and slams into Dukion's face. The middleweight champion Kong finally steps into the ring to end the madness. He glares at the drugged-up freak and asks what he thinks he is doing picking fights at someone else's school. Seeing him distracted, Heijun manages to pull away, looking battered and fuming, declares that laying hands on his sister was crossing a major line. The two powerhouses square off in the middle of the room and the tension is thick enough to cut. Downstairs, Mu is still stuck with the boxes and is completely missing the main event happening right above him. A loud crash echoes through the halls, making the bodybuilding teacher pause and wonder where the commotion is coming from. Students run past for cover and a student yells that a massive war is breaking out in the third-year classroom, and Mu perks up immediately. The teacher drops his boxes and starts fuming about the punks causing trouble, but Mu sees his chance. He casually tosses his stack of boxes into the air and bolts toward the action he has been hunting for all day. The lit dragon is chilling inside a plastic bag with a pink smartphone, but he lunges onto Mu's shoulder to get his attention. The little dragon is vibrating with intensity because he senses a massive surge of mana nearby. Back in the classroom, Dukion clenches his purple-veined fist and lunges, but Kang casually sways out of the way. The brute force haymaker misses entirely, leaving Dukion swinging at empty air. Kang slips behind the beast, countering him with a punch, and realizes the attack has zero technique. Dodging this clumsy power is light work for a pro like him. Dukian completely loses his mind and starts calling his opponent a bug while pouring every bit of his pill-boosted mana into a desperate charge, but he is telegraphing his moves so badly it is like he has a neon sign over his head. Heijin sees the opening and steps in to deliver a sharp kick to the back of his knee. The purple monster buckles and drops hard to the floor, looking completely blindsided by the teamwork. Rage twitches in Dukian's eye as he stares at the ground, but before he can even think about getting up, a hand clamps onto his face. Heijin looms over him, bruised but completely composed, and points out that even the toughest body has a vulnerable spot. With that, both fighters unleash a barrage of punches on the monster guy. Finding no way out, Dukian finally snaps and ignores all the damage as he charges once more. His eyes glow with drug-fueled madness as he bolts toward the crowd, searching for a new target to crush. Everyone scrambles for the exit while Dukian grabs Baldy and shakes him like a rag doll. He desperately begs for another pill, claiming he can't catch his target without another hit of that purple magic. He blames Baldy, saying he was the one who ordered him to take Heijun down, leaving Heijun shocked himself. The monster reveals that he thought Baldy was the hooded boss, and hearing that makes Heijun boil with rage. Finally fed up with being exposed, Baldy gives in and shoves a pill into the monster's mouth, warning him that he better finish Heijun off. The pill-powered monster pops his veins and prepares for another round. Heijun is also in a total rage and starts walking toward the guy to end the fight for good. But things go south fast. Just as he passes Kang, he is thrown back with tremendous force and slams hard into the wall. Kang is shocked by the sudden move, but he doesn't have time to react before he is next, getting slammed into the wall just as hard. With the two fighters down, the monster turns his attention toward Heijun's sister. She shouts for the guys to get up, but there is no response, and realizing she is in a nightmare spot, she tries to bolt. The monster is quick and swings at her, but before he can land a hit, the heavy gym teacher steps into the way and blocks the attack. The teacher tries to play the hero by warning the guy not to mess with the weak, and he squeezes the monster's hand to show off his strength. However, his plan backfires completely because the big guy is way tougher than he looks. The monster squeezes back with even more force, literally bending the teacher's fingers out of shape. Realizing the situation is way above his pay grade, the teacher runs out of the classroom, shouting that they better call the police immediately. Right as the teacher bails, Mu appears with the little dragon sitting on top of his head. The dragon points at the monster and tells Mu that he can feel a familiar mana coming off him. The Baldy from the group also spots the dragon and remembers it is the same one they were using as collateral, so he demands that Mu hand it over right now. Before the Baldy can even reach him, his foot slips and he accidentally hits Mater right in the face. We all know that touching Mater's face is basically an open invitation for a beatdown. Mater wastes zero time and grabs the guy by the head, delivering a brutal knee strike straight to his face that sends him crashing to the ground. The monster guy is a bit shocked seeing his boss get wrecked, but the Baldy orders him to finish Mater off then and there. Following the order with a creepy level of excitement, the guy throws a massive punch at Mater. However, just as the hit connects, his demon form completely vanishes and he shrinks back into his human form. It turns out the little dragon used his mana drain skill, gathering all that energy into a glowing blue ball and leaving the bully powerless. Mater doesn't care that the guy is weak now and starts loading up his fists, pounding him into the dirt with a relentless beating. While the bully is getting trashed, the little dragon stares at the energy ball, realizing the mana inside feels incredibly pure and powerful. Once the guy drops to the floor, Mater realizes the bully is way too weak to give him any kind of thrill. He isn't getting a kick out of the fight anymore, so he orders the dragon to put all that mana back into the guy. The dragon tries to warn him, pointing out that this mana isn't normal and is way too pure to be found naturally on Earth. Mater starts putting the pieces together and figures it must be some kind of god's artifact. He gets suspicious and asks the dragon if it's his mana causing the mess, and the dragon nods sheepishly. In the meantime, the bully absorbs the power and transforms into an even more terrifying Blue Hulk form, ready for a real war. To understand how things got this wild, the story flashes back 1,000 years to the divine Cyclops realm. God Mu is busy scrapping with a super Cyclops in its massive enlarged form. The big guy eventually gets annoyed by Mu's persistence and throws a giant club that literally cracks the ground on impact. However, the monster's weapon and hands start twisting and suddenly vanish into thin air. It turns out Mu punched so hard that he took the monster's arm clean off and forced him back into his original form. The monster is totally over Mu, always picking on him. But Mu is just looking to get entertained by a good fight. Since the fun is over for now, Mu decides to leave, feeling pretty bored with the whole situation. Seeing his master so disappointed, the dragon decides to help out and brings a large rock in front of Mu. At first, Mu is confused, so the dragon explains that he brought the rock from Earth and used a grinding spell on it. The rock transforms into a fine powder, and then the dragon vomits a sticky liquid onto it, mixing it with his magic until it becomes a dough-like boulder. He signs on it and excitedly claims that he managed to induce the rock with body enchantment magic. He tells Mu that feeding this to an opponent before a fight will make things much more fun. The dragon takes a tiny pinch to show that just a small amount is enough for a massive effect, and Mu is genuinely surprised. He grabs the magic dough and bolts back toward the Cyclops realm, promising to return soon. Mu feeds the magic substance to the Cyclops and is immediately sent flying back like he was hit by a literal truck. Despite the impact, Mu is smiling because the plan worked and now the monster is in a much more powerful, energized form. The one-eyed monster charges out and starts exchanging massive blows with Mu. Even with the power boost, Mu manages to punch him down to the ground, but then a crazy accident happens. The dragon falls onto the magic rock, causing it to bounce toward the Earth realm. The rock almost gets blocked by a divine seal, but it accidentally smacks the dragon on the way down. Since the dragon is a god, the seal counts that contact as consent and lets the magic rock back into the world. Coming back to the present, Mu realizes that someone must have discovered that chunk of magic rock, and the purple beast standing in front of him is the literal result. Just then, Dukyan throws a punch that Mu manages to dodge, and in response, Mu puts all his energy into his arm and hits Dukyan square in the guts. Even though the hit lands, Mu's knuckles start throbbing with pain because Dukyan is way tougher than expected. While Mu is briefly distracted by the pain, the purple monster swings again. Mu dodges easily, which makes Dukyan even more desperate. The monster slams his fist into the ground with all his force, shaking the entire building so hard that students and furniture are launched into the air. As Mu is hovering off the ground from the shockwave, Dukyan grabs him midair and delivers a punch so strong that it sends him crashing into the wall, leaving a massive crack. The dragon rushes over to check on Mu, whose face is totally bruised up from the impact. Mu is pretty annoyed now and asks how much longer the pill's effect is going to last. The dragon calculates that the monster still has 5 minutes of power left and offers to drain the mana away to save Mu. However, Mu just gets a huge smile on his face and rejects the help, claiming he won't get another chance like this in his life to fight a real challenge. He is confident he can end the fight before the clock runs out, which leaves the little dragon completely shocked. Somewhere else, the leader from before is seen extracting a fresh blue chunk from a basement, excited that it will be enough to keep their plans moving. Back in the classroom, Mu finally has enough of the struggle and rips his shirt off completely. Looking at Dukyan's monster form, he knows a head-on collision will be rough, so he decides to play a bit dirty by using his god-level experience. Over thousands of years, his muscles grew so massive they actually started getting in the way of his fighting, so he learned a secret technique to compress all that bulk into high-density power. By packing down hundreds of thousands of muscle stacks, he can keep a lean frame while maintaining absolute strength. In the present moment, he manages to compress just one stack, knowing he can now drive one specific part of his body to its absolute limit. Just as he finishes prepping, Dukyan charges in like a runaway train, and Mu barely manages to dodge the hit. Mu keeps focusing and pushes the compression to 2 stacks, but the monster is too fast and grabs him by the head, swinging him like a bowling ball straight into the wall. The impact leaves a massive crack in the concrete, but Mu doesn't stop, raising his compression to 3 stacks while pinned. The monster doesn't waste a second and charges again, and this time Mu meets that energy head-on. Their fists collide in the middle of the room with so much force that every single window in the classroom shatters instantly. Dukyan is visibly shocked as his hand starts shaking from the impact, and in a total rage, he starts throwing every punch he has. Mu matches him blow for blow, sending literal shockwaves of chaos through the room as their fists collide over and over again. Dukyan is losing his mind because his hand is actually starting to hurt from the exchanges, while Mu realizes that he is clearly the more powerful one now. Deciding that playtime is officially over, Mu swings with everything he has and connects with a devastating force. The impact is so insane that it sends Dukyan flying right out of the building, crashing through the wall and landing on the pavement outside. Everyone on the ground starts panicking and screaming for the police as they see the monster drop from the sky. Up in the classroom, Mu stands by the broken wall with his monstrously powered arm, while Hanjun's sister just stares at him in total disbelief. The Baldy tries to use the distraction to kidnap the dragon, but Mu catches him in the act. Realizing he is busted, the guy tosses the dragon aside and bolts, shouting that the guy was just the weakest member and that they will be back with even stronger fighters. The dragon wants to chase him down and teach him a lesson, but he stops when he sees Mu kneeling on the ground looking pretty rough. The dragon asks if he is okay, but to his surprise, Mu is smiling like a total unhinged weirdo. He is actually hyped that the Baldy mentioned having even stronger guys for him to fight, and he orders the dragon to spit out the mana he absorbed earlier so they can keep moving. Back at the boss's office, the leader is busy grinding up more pills when the Baldy bursts through the door in a total panic, begging for more blue pills. The boss brushes him off, saying they are all out, but the Baldy keeps pleading and reveals that his guy lost even after taking 2 doses. This news makes the boss break into a cold sweat because he knows it should be impossible for anyone to defeat someone on a double dose. Just as they are starting to freak out, the whole building starts sounding like a war zone with explosions and banging coming from the hallway. The door eventually bursts open and Mu walks in looking like a straight-up nightmare. The boss demands to know who he is, but the trail of beaten gang members behind him says enough. Mu just rubs his hands together with a terrifying smile, demanding to see the stronger guys the Baldy was bragging about. After Mu tells the dragon to spit it out, the little creature pulls a healing artifact from his mouth. Using its divine power, Mu fully recovers from his injuries and immediately sets off to find those stronger guys the Baldy mentioned earlier. Before he can leave the classroom, Kang and Haijun wake up and offer to join him, claiming they want to wipe the gang out from the roots. Mu walks toward them with a look so serious it makes both of them nervous. Instead of accepting their help, Mu suddenly grabs their legs and cracks them on the spot so they can't follow him, leaving them grounded while he follows the Baldy to a shady building. At the entrance of the building, a bodyguard tries to stop him, but Mu just ignores him and claims he has a deal with the Baldy. The guard makes the mistake of grabbing Mu's shoulder, which is all the invitation the god needs. In a fraction of a second, Mu punches the guy right in the face and throws him into the building like a total ragdoll. The guard smashes into the floor in front of his buddies, who all start charging at Mu while calling him names. Instead of being worried, Mu's face lights up with excitement as he prepares to wreck the whole group. Back in the present, all those guards are lying dead on the ground behind him as he stands at the office door with a terrifying grin. The Baldy is absolutely terrified, recognizing Mu as the weirdo who beat their two-pill monster. The dragon gets enraged at them for calling his master a weirdo, but the real problem is Mu, who gets right in the Baldy's face and demands to see the strong fighters he was promised. The boss realizes Mu is no joke since he wiped out the entire security team, so he decides to test him. He agrees to let Mu fight his top guys, but sets a condition that if Mu loses, he has to serve under the boss forever. Mu doesn't care about the stakes and agrees with a creepy grin. The Baldy adds another condition, demanding the dragon as well if Mu fails, and Mu agrees in a heartbeat despite the dragon's protests. With that, the boss puts him into a cage against a massive, Hulk-like guy named Yong, who is already acting like a maniac after taking one pill. The boss sits in the stands with the Baldy, feeling confident that his three chosen fighters can easily grind Mu down. In the ring, Yong mocks Mu and claims he has orders to kill him, charging forward with everything he has. Yong swings hard, but Mu manages to dodge the attack easily. He uses grip enhancement to grab the guy's arm, squeezing it so hard that the giant drops to his knees, screaming in pure agony. Mu delivers a cold, dead stare back at the boss, making the leader flinch with worry. The boss quickly sends in his next fighter, who has also taken a pill, but Mu is already one step ahead. He enhances his leg muscles and lands a mid-air kick on the guy's knee before slamming a fist into his face so hard it sends him flying into the cage walls. Mu warns them that these guys are nowhere near as tough as promised, and calls them out for sending such weaklings instead of the strongest fighters they have. The boss is straight up trembling now, but he puts all his faith in the last fighter they have left. This guy doesn't play around and swallows 2 pills at once before even stepping into the ring. The drug hits his system instantly, bulking his muscles into a massive tower of power. As this blue Hulk stomps toward the cage, the Baldy starts losing his mind because he recognizes just how dangerous this transformation is. When the big guy enters the ring, Mu wonders out loud if this is finally the strong opponent he was promised. The monster just brushes it off and claims he doesn't know about all that, but he is definitely the strongest being in the ring right now. To prove his point, he kicks the body of the previous fighter so hard that the man is launched out of the cage and slams high into the stadium wall. Seeing that, the boss is worried for a second, but then he starts smiling as he realizes his fighter is a total beast. While Mu is busy looking at the body on the wall, the monster takes a cheap shot and hits him with a powerful knee to the face. The force is so extreme that Mu skids back across the floor, with the friction literally burning his shoes right off his feet. He realizes the guy has insane power in his legs, so he throws his burnt shoes at the monster as a distraction and charges in low using an animal-style kung fu stance. The big guy is caught off guard and tries to slam Mu into the ground, but Mu dodges the attack and gets behind him like a wild beast. Mu activates a behemoth form and slams his fist into the monster's face like a hammer, but the guy just grabs Mu's wrist and mocks him, calling his punches weak. Our boy doesn't let up and throws a barrage of hits, ending the combo with a sharp knee that finally forces the monster to let go of his grip. Once he is back on his feet, Mu realizes that regular hits just aren't going to cut it against this tank. He goes for another calculated attack, debating whether he should go for a joint lock, target the vitals, or just start pounding as hard as possible. Before he can even decide, the monster comes flying in with another knee that slams Mu into the cage walls. The hit is brutal and buries itself right into Mu's face, but he manages to stay conscious long enough to channel all his muscle strength into his arm. He decides to go for a vital strike and slams a hard punch into the monster's chest, but the guy just mocks him again for being too weak. Maiden Amrisim buds down and decides he needs to be sharper than his opponent. He channels every bit of his power into his middle finger knuckle to create a concentrated point of impact. He punches so hard that the monster's face twists in pure pain, forcing the giant to fall back for the first time. Mighty gets hyped seeing this and launches into a full barrage of these precision attacks all over the guy's body. The boss and the Baldy are both starting to freak out as they watch their champion get dismantled, while the dragon just sits there with a satisfied smile. Realizing the ship is sinking, the boss starts running towards the ring in a total panic. Back in the ring, the monster is covered in deep punch marks and drops to the ground, but then a blue pill bounces right toward him. He opens his eyes and realizes the boss threw him one last lifeline from the corner before bailing. The boss signals his fighter to take the third pill, promising to quadruple his paycheck if he can finally put the boy down. The fighter gets insanely hyped at the thought of all that cash and uses his long tongue to scoop the pill into his mouth, claiming there is no way he can pass up an offer like that. As the drug hits his system, his entire body starts shaking violently, and his spine transforms until it looks like a dragon's back. This 3-pill form is a total nightmare, as the guy grows twice his original size and starts literally breathing smoke out of his mouth. The boss is thrilled and orders his monster to go get the boy, and the creature charges forward at full speed. Manhwa realizes that his previous moves aren't going to cut it anymore against a 3-pill monster. He uses his compression technique again and enhances his middle finger knuckle to the absolute max for extra sharpness. As the monster reaches out to grab him, Manhwa dodges to the side and swings with everything he has, but his hand just slides right off the monster's skin. Even with all that compression, Manhwa is shocked to find the guy's body is as tough as a sheet of metal, so he decides to pull back and rethink his strategy. While Manhwa is wondering how to break through that defense, the monster suddenly leaps into the sky and drops down on him like a nuclear strike. The impact creates a massive blast that sends debris flying like bullets all around the arena. Even though Manhwa manages to block the direct hit, the force sends him flying into the air. The monster isn't done and grabs him mid-air, slamming him back into the ground over and over again like a ragdoll. Seeing his master getting manhandled like that makes the dragon panic, and he rushes to the corner to start a healing spell. But as the monster lifts him up for another slam, Manhwa shows that creepy signature smile and orders the dragon to stay back and not dare use any healing. Manhwa knows he can't even pierce the guy's skin with his current strength, so he realizes he has to find a new way to break through. The monster slams Manhwa again and then slaps him so hard across the face that his brain momentarily blacks out, causing him to drop Manhwa. Seeing the monster finally landing some serious damage makes the boss sweat with nerves. When Moose looks at him with a dead serious expression, the boss starts swearing that he didn't do anything wrong by giving out the pills. To his total shock, Moose doesn't even care, and actually thanks the boss for making the fight more interesting. Moose goes right back into the fight and lifts the massive monster up by his leg, making the boss realize he is about to lose everything he built. The boss has been hustling since he was 13 to build this empire, and now he is screaming in agony as the two fighters literally wreck the entire building. Just as he is mid-scream, Manhwa flashes past him and slams hard into the stands. Seeing that, Baldy makes a run for it, realizing they're goners if they stay any longer. Moose, despite looking like a beaten-up tomato, pulls himself together and wonders what could even work against the guy. He remembers hurting the monster when he aimed for his head and considers focusing his attacks there again. He knows the guy won't just stand still and let himself get hit, but he's stuck trying to figure out what to do. Realizing fighting while overthinking is exhausting for him, so he decides to stop thinking for now and let his instincts take over instead. Moo's eyes go completely loco as he forces himself to stand up on wobbly legs. Meanwhile, the purple monster doesn't give him even a second to breathe and instantly jumps at him with flashy speed. However, just as the strike is about to connect, Manhwa vanishes in a flash and delivers an absolute ultra instinct level kick straight to the monster's face, completely deforming his jaw. Naturally, the monster is totally shocked by the counter, and the pain only enrages him even more as he charges right back at Manhwa with everything he has left. Still, Manhwa is completely ready for the clash and flexes every single muscle in his one arm, meeting the monster's giant fist head-on. As a result, the collision creates a massive shockwave that sends both of them flying backward into opposite sides of the arena. After that insane clash, both of their hands are throbbing with pain, yet Manhwa keeps that creepy signature smile plastered on his face because he is genuinely enjoying the chaos. At first, the big guy thinks Manhwa's arm has to be a total goner after that impact, but then the busted arm suddenly comes flashing forward and strikes the monster right in the eye. Without wasting any time, Manhwa immediately starts delivering massive heavy blows to the guy's head using his wrecked hand. He keeps bombarding the beast with hits until eventually, the blue monster manages to time a heavy kick that sends Manhwa crashing down into the ring. Even then, the purple guy can only stare at Manhwa's mangled arm in total confusion, wondering if this kid is seriously crazy enough to sacrifice his own limb just to win a fight. Suddenly, things take a dark turn for the beast as he starts coughing up foam and realizes the triple pill effect is finally wearing off. Desperate to secure his quadruple pay before his power drains completely, he leaps high into the air and comes diving down from the roof like a ballistic missile. Meanwhile, Manhwa just stands there staring at the incoming warhead and waits until the absolute last second to dodge by a few inches, causing the monster to miss entirely. Seeing the perfect opening, Mu contracts his leg muscles and delivers a brutal stomp that smashes the monster's face right into the concrete. Even worse for the beast, Mu doesn't stop there and keeps stomping relentlessly. In fact, the force of his kicks is so extreme that the entire building starts shaking violently. At that point, the boss and the dragon can only watch in absolute worry until Mu finally stops his assault, after seeing that the monster has shriveled back into a normal human form. Even though Mu's own leg is completely battered and looks like a soggy sock, he just throws his head back and starts laughing out loud like a complete maniac. Right in the middle of his celebration, a massive metal frame from the ruined ceiling suddenly collapses right on top of him and pins him to the floor. Instantly, the dragon screams for his master in total panic and runs to the rescue, while the boss breaks into a cold sweat as he looks around at the wreckage. At first, he tries to comfort himself by noting that the building is technically still standing, but a moment later he realizes the structural damage is way beyond what he could ever afford to fix. Meanwhile, the little dragon does his absolute best to lift the heavy metal structure off Mu, but the steel is way too massive for his tiny body. Because of that, the dragon decides he needs a serious power boost and charges straight toward the boss, demanding one of those blue pills. The boss is completely shocked as to why a talking lizard is suddenly sitting on his head making demands. Unfortunately for both of them, neither notices that Mu's broccoli-looking hand is already starting to twitch under the rubble, proving that the god is still very much alive. The little dragon catches the movement too and instantly shouts out for his master, who is already throwing the heavy metal structures off his back like an absolute maniac. Meanwhile, Mu raises his head with a trembling voice and demands to know who just dared to strike him. In response, the dragon hastily explains that it was actually just the ceiling collapsing on top of his head. Unfortunately, Mu takes that explanation as a direct challenge from the building itself and immediately decides to go to war with the infrastructure while wearing a creepy grin. As he extends his fist toward the ceiling and flexes every single muscle in his arm, loud screeching and crunching sounds begin echoing throughout the entire arena. Because of that, the dragon watches in massive worry after realizing his master is forcing his muscles way beyond their physical limits. Mu gathers every last bit of strength left in his body and slams the ground so hard that a massive crater forms right in the middle of the room. Instantly, the boss, the dragon, and honestly even the building itself can feel the shockwave as the entire structure begins cracking apart. At that point, the boss desperately pleads for Mu to stop the madness while the dragon warns him that the whole place is about to collapse. However, that warning only hypes Mu up even more because in his mind it means he is winning the fight. Fueled by pure excitement, he throws one final crushing punch into the floor, sending a giant crack tearing through the entire foundation. Meanwhile, while the Baldy is still outside desperately trying to run away, the entire building suddenly explodes into a mountain of rubble with a deafening blast. Once the thick dust finally settles, the dragon crawls out of the wreckage and finds his master lying nearby in a pretty terrible state, though somehow that creepy signature grin is wider than ever. Nearby, the boss is drowning in despair, after realizing the empire he spent his entire life building is completely gone. On top of that, he starts regretting ever spoiling the nephew who caused this whole disaster in the first place. Then, almost like fate itself is trolling him, the remaining piece of the magic dough comes rolling right toward his feet. Meanwhile, back over with Mu, the dragon apologizes for not bringing enough healing potions. Even so, Mu casually assures him that everything is fine since Earth has decent hospitals anyway. Suddenly, though, a loud explosion erupts right beside them, and the boss emerges from the smoke fully transformed into a terrifying purple beast. This time, however, the boss isn't normal sized like the other fighters. Instead, he has grown into a humongous giant that actually makes both Mu and the dragon pretty worried. Even with that danger staring him in the face, Mu still gets his creepy smile ready for another round and confidently claims his luck is holding up. Sadly for him, his broken body completely disagrees, and he immediately drops to the ground in severe pain. Taking advantage of that moment, the giant monster closes the distance and slams his beefy arm downward so hard that it creates another massive blast. However, when the dust clears, the punch turns out to be a complete miss because the dragon managed to yank Mu out of the way just in time. Realizing they are in absolutely no condition to keep fighting, the dragon tries using his mana drain skill on the boss, but Mu suddenly stops him. Even though he looks worse than a dead body at this point, Mu insists he can still move because his left leg is somehow still working for one final attack. Right then, as the monster launches another devastating strike toward them, Mu enhances his last good leg with muscle enhancement and blasts himself off the ground, completely evading the attack. In the very next second, he rockets headfirst into the monster's stomach and lands a headbutt so violent that it ruptures the giant's gut and forces him to cough up every single blue pill. Within a minute, the boss shrinks back into a regular human, and Mu smirks to himself knowing he just won the war. Behind him, the dragon gets hyped after spotting the magic dough lying on the ground. Unfortunately, before he can celebrate, a sudden powerful wind sweeps through the area and makes him drop it. At first, the dragon is completely confused by the random weather change, but then a purple glow suddenly appears in the sky, filling the air with light mana. Naturally, the dragon gets excited over all the free energy floating around him. What he doesn't realize, though, is that the sky is literally cracking open right behind him, and an absolutely monstrous dragon is beginning to crawl its way out of the rift. How did that happen? Well, way up in the sky, Lucifer was still trying his absolute hardest to break through the Earthrealm barrier by throwing basically everything he could at it. However, no matter what he did, the barrier didn't even budge. Even the archer gods started getting annoyed by all the non-stop noise and finally called him out for acting like a maniac. Lucifer, though, completely ignored her and stayed furious that all his effort hadn't left even a tiny scratch on the barrier. At that point, he genuinely started wondering what in the hell that thing was even made of. Then, while thinking about it, Lucifer suddenly wished he had a weapon powerful enough to match the barrier's strength. The moment that thought crossed his mind, though, he realized he actually did have something like that. In the very next instant, Lucifer vanished in a flash. Meanwhile, the archer god watches him disappear and just gets even more irritated, wondering what crazy idea he came up with this time. Unfortunately for her, she finds out almost immediately because Lucifer suddenly reappears carrying an entire planet of Elmer on his back like an absolute lunatic. The archer god instantly starts screaming at him, convinced he has completely lost his mind. Even so, Lucifer ignores every word she says and hurls the entire planet toward Earth with everything he has. The moment the planets collide, Lucifer starts laughing like a complete maniac, fully expecting the second barrier to finally shatter the first one. However, to his shock, the two worlds don't explode at all. Instead, they seem to get stuck together. At first, Lucifer wonders if maybe it actually worked, but when he looks more closely, he realizes both planetary barriers have fused together instead, creating strange pathways between the two worlds. Even worse, cracks slowly begin forming inside those pathways. Back in the present, one of those cracks suddenly tears open, and a terrifying dragon from Elmer crawls out while demanding to know who dared to set up house inside his realm. Naturally, the humans witnessing all of this have absolutely no clue what in the hell is happening, so everybody immediately starts running for their lives. One poor guy gets so terrified that he literally pisses and shits himself while freezing in fear as the massive dragon head points directly at him. The poor dude is fully convinced the monster thinks he caused all this. However, before the dragon can even do anything to the guy, the demon beast suddenly notices something on the ground. Instantly, his eyes widen in complete shock as he wonders if that could actually be Mubi's token. Without saying another word, the beast quietly slips back into the crack before anyone notices him disappearing. Meanwhile, back on the ground, the little dragon is busy healing Mubi, and surprisingly, the spell is actually working. At the same time, Mubi senses mana filling the air around them, causing him to question what's going on. In response, the dragon admits he isn't fully sure either, but decides it's better to focus on healing first. Unfortunately, before they can relax, the crack suddenly opens again. This time, however, a towering knight steps out from the rift. Both Mu and the dragon instantly notice him, and without wasting a second, the knight pulls out his sword and immediately swings toward the dragon while calling him out. The dragon, though, isn't the type to get bullied that easily. Because of that, he instantly transforms into his god form and smashes the knight away with a brutal hit. That single attack immediately confirms the knight's suspicions that the little lizard really is Mubi's pet. Even so, the knight warns the dragon to stand aside, claiming his business is only with Mub. Still, being the loyal little menace that he is, the dragon flat out refuses and warns the knight that he isn't laying a single finger on Mubi while he's standing there. Hearing that, the knight decides to get serious. Using his spell, he forcefully pulls his sword back into his hand, and the blade comes flying toward him with incredible speed. With that done, the knight immediately charges toward the dragon with everything he has left. Meanwhile, the dragon suddenly remembers all the suffering, humiliation, and random tossing around he experienced on Earth while stuck in his weaker form. Because of that, he decides this knight desperately needs a lesson for trying to pick on him again. Looking straight at the guy, the dragon asks if he seriously looks that easy to beat before activating his magic circle spells. In an instant, 10 glowing circles appear around the knight in midair and begin blasting him from every direction non-stop. As the knight crashes down onto the ground, Mu slowly walks over, wondering who in the hell this guy even is. However, the moment he sees the knight's face clearly, it turns out to be some Baldy. Even crazier, the bald knight immediately gets shocked after seeing Mubi's face and suddenly springs back up while shouting at him. In complete desperation, he demands that Mubi give him his body back. That's when the truth finally comes out. The knight is actually an adventurer from Elmer who carries the soul of Lee, the original owner of the body Mubi has been using this entire time. Completely broken and desperate, Lee starts begging with everything he has, pleading for Mubi to return his body to him. To understand exactly what is going down, the story flashes back a bit to the whole Lucifer incident, where the big villain literally threw a planet at Earth and caused a massive cosmic traffic jam. It turns out that the mana from Elmore poured straight into Earth, and because of that, a cosmic passage connecting the two planets started appearing and disappearing at random. Due to this unstable highway, dimensional rifts began tearing open all over Earth. Monsters came flooding out of the portals in droves, completely nerfing human armies because the creatures were just way too strong to handle. Luckily, two legendary heroes were strong enough to fight back, a dragon from another world and a mysterious unknown adventurer. Thanks to their carrying the team, humanity survived its first major crisis, and soon after, more gifted individuals like Mu started popping up to handle the monsters by using mana to awaken special powers. Humanity wasted no time building elite training facilities for these gifted people, who quickly became known as hunters. One of these hunters was Lee, the original owner of Mu's current body. He still remembered his old, ordinary life as a femboy school student who did nothing but play video games and dream of scoring a massive harem in another world. From what he remembered, his prayers were actually answered by a god one day, and he got transported to another world where he woke up as an adventurer. However, the system completely catfished him because the body he received was incredibly ugly, and there was absolutely no harem waiting for him. He started out as a measly rank 2 adventurer and had to grind daily quests for the guilds just to make ends meet, while local girls constantly mocked his looks. Every time he saw his reflection in a mirror, he cursed the god who did that to him, until a dimensional crack opened up behind him during a quest. Wanting to escape his pathetic lifestyle, he stepped through the portal and ended up right back on Earth. Coming back to the present, the guy is pleading and crying on his knees, begging Mu to give him his original body back because he literally cannot live with that ugly face anymore. Moore drops the ultimate bad news on him, revealing that even if he wanted to help, swapping back is completely impossible. This revelation completely breaks the guy's spirit, as he has never felt this level of humiliation in his entire life. With his old body gone forever, he locked in on a single goal, which was to earn enough cash through monster hunting to pay for plastic surgery so he can finally live a normal life. Earth had officially become his personal battlefield, and survival was his entire mission. Now, as Lee is laying on the ground completely defeated, the dragon straight up ignores him and focuses entirely on healing his master instead. At the same time, though, he can't stop wondering if all of this chaos is really Lucifer's doing. While he is lost in thought, even more cracks suddenly begin appearing across the sky behind them, making the dragon realize that something seriously strange is happening. Before he can even react properly, Mu, who is now fully healed, suddenly jumps onto the dragon's head in pure excitement after sensing Elmer's energy in the air. Almost instantly, Mu confirms that this whole mess is definitely Lucifer's fault. With that realization, both of them immediately take off toward the location where the monsters had appeared. The moment they arrive, they start absolutely smacking demons across the streets without mercy. From there, Mu handled the front lines like an absolute monster while the dragon kept the rear completely secure. Because of that teamwork, the dragon suddenly became insanely famous after news helicopters started broadcasting him live while he was taking down demons. Naturally, humans quickly began worshipping him like a hero. Unfortunately for the dragon, though, the admiration quickly turned into non-stop demands as people started begging him to train and guide humans who had awakened powers. At that point, the dragon was honestly about ready to teach humanity a lesson for being so annoying. However, Mu stopped him and instead made a deal with the humans that basically turned the dragon into the principal of a magic school. Unlike the humans, the dragon actually understood that the individuals they called hunters weren't hunters at all. In reality, they were simply mages, and their ranks were determined by both the quality of their magic and their overall strength. Because of that, on the very first day of the dragon's school, all the humans who joined were greeted by giant demons the dragon had personally chained from the neck like dogs on leashes. Standing before the terrified students, the dragon reveals that he will be testing their ranks through combat, exactly like they used to rank mages back in Elmer. According to him, the rankings go from rank 5 all the way to rank 1, with rank 1 being the absolute highest a mage can achieve. With that explanation out of the way, the dragon orders everyone to attack the captured monsters one by one. Instantly, the students begin unleashing all kinds of abilities. Some fire explosive spikes, some use telekinesis, while others release unique electrical discharges all over the battlefield. Meanwhile, Kang also steps forward and activates his Absolute Zero skill, completely freezing an entire wyvern solid in front of everyone. That single feat immediately earns him rank 1, shocking all the other hunters since it's the highest possible rank they could receive. Seeing that kind of potential, Mu gets visibly excited, already looking forward to what these humans might become in the future. Everyone completely loses their minds over Kang scoring the rank 1 spot in the class. The orange kid and the hat guy look purely jealous about it, while Kang wastes no time flexing his top-tier status right in front of everyone. Just as Kang is playing around with his new ice powers, a strong wave of purple fire suddenly melts his ice completely. He looks back in total shock and realizes that Heijun is the one who just burned a whole wyvern down to crisp. Heijun actually possesses the rare Hellfire skill, and the dragon rewards his destructive display by awarding him a rank 1 status on the spot. However, when the dragon looks over at Mu, things are looking way less flashy. Mu has been punching a giant test pig for 30 straight minutes without stopping, and hasn't even managed to leave a single scratch on it, so the dragon awards him a bottom-tier rank 5 status. This doesn't really bother Mu at all, since he knows his unique skill is just basic body enhancement, but the loudmouth fatty in the class starts aggressively mocking him for getting the lowest rank available. The dragon does not take the disrespect well at all and immediately transforms into his massive real form, roaring directly at the bully and using his dragon fear to make the kid start sweating bullets. The dragon demands to know the bully's own rank, and the cocky kid gets so utterly terrified that he literally pees himself right there on the floor. With the evaluations wrapped up, they quickly move on to the next stage of training and put that exact same terrified student first for the real combat test. This guy's name is Jin, and he is a rank 3 hunter with a unique skill called explosive spikes. Jin is standing in the ring sweating a bit when the dragon uses his magic to summon a giant hulking orc, announcing to the class that real combat starts right now. Seeing the massive monster, Jin tries to act cocky and throws his explosive spikes straight at the beast without thinking of any strategy. To his absolute shock, the orc just inhales deeply, gathers a massive amount of air into his mouth, and blows out a strong pressure wave that sends the spikes flying straight back while smelling completely awful. Suddenly, a massive explosion erupts and sends the fatty flying high into the air. Seeing him get launched, Kang worries that the classmate might actually die from the impact, but the dragon remains totally confident that mages are sturdier than they look and won't die from something small like a bad smell. Just then, while the kid is still hovering in midair, the orc reaches out and grabs him by his head, opening his massive jaw wide to eat him whole as a snack. Kang panics and reconfirms if the dragon is absolutely sure about the kid surviving, which forces the dragon to activate a spell that stops the orc right before he can swallow the student. The orc drops hard onto the ground with heavy magic chains locked around his neck while the fatty is left crumpled on the floor, clearly having pissed his pants out of pure terror. Next up is an incredibly excited Mu who wants to get straight into the action without waiting around, and the dragon gladly allows him to step into the ring next. Kang is still a bit worried about his friend, asking if Mu will really be alright going up against a dangerous rank 4 orc by himself, but the dragon is completely confident in his master's latent abilities. Inside the ring, the orc charges straight at Mu with full, unbridled rage because he was strangled by the magic chains just a moment earlier. Instead of being worried about the incoming train wreck, Mu starts laughing out loud because the situation reminds him of his wild past. He used to have countless conversations with the literal Orc King back when he first arrived in Elmer, and by conversations he means straight up beating the absolute crap out of the poor guy. Now back in the present, he is facing something very similar, and is already predicting the monster's attack path perfectly, remembering that these creatures have incredibly sturdy upper bodies but are pretty easy to read. With that tactical knowledge locked in, Mu uses his muscle enhancement skill for his arm and starts hammering a relentless barrage of heavy punches straight into the beast, forcing the massive orc backward. Kongs is absolutely shocked by the sudden display of raw power, while the dragon shows off even more confidence in his master's elite skills. However, the salty fatty behind them is still being incredibly petty about the whole thing. According to the bully, a rank 5 is still a low rank 5 even if everyone else glazes him like a god, which makes Kong worry about the toxic environment. Back in the ring, despite delivering all those heavy hits, the orc's tough skin remains completely intact. This makes Mu realize that he still lacks true explosive power and definitely has physical limits despite constantly enhancing his human body. Still, he is a bit relieved to see that his blows are at least doing some internal damage, and he figures that if his next powerful hit lands perfectly, he can take the beast down for good. However, that perfect finishing hit never lands, and the grueling fight ends up going on through the entire night without a break. The battle lasts so long that even the dragon drops onto the ground and falls fast asleep, but his students quickly wake him up the next morning by pointing out something wild happening in the arena. When the dragon rubs his eyes and looks into the ring, he is shocked to see that after delivering hundreds of hits, Mu finally manages to take down the massive orc with one final crushing punch. Mu is incredibly excited that despite his inability to pierce the monster's thick hide, his blunt force took down its heavy head, proving his training isn't going to waste. From that point on, Mu goes on an absolute streak in the training ring. He takes on a massive bird monster and fights it with the kind of experience that only someone who has lived through thousands of brutal battles could possibly have. He knows exactly where to hit and understands exactly how to counter every single move. The griffin takes a full week to defeat, and the minotaur takes even longer to put down. Other hunters naturally gather around the ring just to watch the show, and without anyone actually planning it, Mu's fights basically become a live masterclass on how to properly dismantle monsters. A few days later, Kang and Haejun step into the arena together, and both of them look incredibly serious and determined. In front of them stands a giant, shadowy minotaur that radiates pure danger into the room. The two hunters work together as a team, so Kang freezes the ground to trap it while Haejun attacks from above with his magic. However, the minotaur doesn't even flinch at their combo and absorbs everything they throw at it like it is absolutely nothing. Haejun catches on to something smart though, figuring out that the monster's biggest strength is how freely it can move around the arena. He realizes that if they can destroy its legs, the whole fight will become way easier to deal with. It is a solid plan on paper, but the minotaur isn't going to just stand there and let them execute it. The beast swings one massive arm and sends both of them flying straight into the stone wall. They crash hard against the bricks, coughing up spit and struggling to stand up. The Minotaur isn't slowing down either, and the Ice King put on its legs just shatters into pieces as the beast jumps high into the air. The dragon, however, steps in to save the day and activates a recovery spell to help the two beaten hunters catch their breath. Mu walks over to them with a smug look on his face and asks if they just copied his own leg targeting strategy. Kang just stares back at him, looking completely exhausted and definitely not in the mood for jokes. Mu notes that the fight looked incredibly boring and explains that just throwing weak attacks at a stronger enemy is totally pointless, adding that they need to actually use their brains to win. Kang and Haijun look at each other and decide to take Mu's advice seriously for once. Kang focuses his mind and unleashes a freezing fog, a technique he calls Absolute Zero, which creeps across the floor toward the Minotaur's legs. The beast stops moving in confusion and ends up completely blinded by the thick mist. That is when Haijun makes his big move, shooting out from the fog with his hands glowing with intense heat. The Minotaur tries to charge forward, but Kang is faster and slams up a solid wall of ice that stops the monster dead in its tracks. While the creature is stuck dealing with that barrier, Haijun slides right underneath it and pours every bit of mana he has into one single spell. A massive pillar of purple fire erupts from the ground and completely swallows the Minotaur, burning the monster to absolute nothingness. The students watching from the sidelines are left completely speechless by the display, while Mu watches it all with a calm look and admits their teamwork wasn't bad, which is basically high praise coming from him. But the training isn't done yet, and now it is time to work on raw magic power. The dragon takes over the class and points the recruits toward a row of heavy training pillars. He shows them how to pull natural mana from the air and focus it into a single shot, firing a low-power version first that barely scratches the surface. Then he cranks the power up to a massive 10 units of mana, and the pillar completely disappears in a flash of blue energy. The students are deeply shaken because the gap between their power and his is almost impossible to wrap their heads around. The dragon also shows them a tiny water vortex spinning perfectly in his hand, making it clear that control matters just as much as raw power. Then, in a casually arrogant way, he admits that he can't really teach them how to struggle with magic because he was born a great dragon and just naturally does everything perfectly. The students look totally defeated after hearing that, realizing they are going to have to figure it out on their own. Meanwhile, Mu stares at his own hand while deep in thought, trying to understand exactly how his magic works inside his new human body, because he wants to push past his current limits. A nervous official in a suit walks in and tells the dragon that the president is in a massive hurry and the schedule is tight, and the dragon confirms that this training session is actually the second to last one before the hunters get sent out on real missions. Over the following days, the hunters grind through their magic training as hard as they can. Some of them, like Hat Guy and Big Mouth, really struggle to get their powers to work properly, but most of the group eventually makes some real progress before they finally move on to the final phase. The dragon gathers everyone together and then announces that the preparation is officially over. He reveals that the final test isn't going to be a standard monster hunt, but rather a real-deal duel to prove they have actually learned how to handle themselves. Everyone assumes a massive beast is about to walk out of the shadows, but the dragon points his finger straight at Mu. Mu is the final test, and Kang and Haijun honestly cannot believe it. They have seen exactly how Mu fights in the ring, so taking him on feels less like a graduation exam and more like walking straight into a death trap. The dragon knows that the reason he was made principal was to make every hunter fight his master. Big Mouth is the very first one to completely lose his mind after hearing the results. In fact, he flat out refuses to accept that someone ranked 5th is casually standing there acting like the final boss of the whole place. Because of that, he immediately starts running his mouth non-stop, throwing trash talk toward Mu without any fear. Naturally, the dragon is just about ready to step in and shut him up for disrespecting his master. However, before he can do anything, Mu himself raises a hand and signals the dragon to stop. Big Mouth still doesn't back down though, and he starts talking himself up to boost his ego. He claims he has surpassed Mu completely and argues that his monster-killing ability puts him in a totally different league. Mu just smiles and then basically tells him to treat this fight as a quick warm-up, which pushes Big Mouth completely over the edge. His mana explodes outward and then he goes all in, determined to end Mu right then and there. They face off properly in the center of the arena, and Big Mouth pours every single bit of his power into his signature move, which is a scattered explosive drill attack, and then launches it straight at Mu. Our boy already knows what's up and uses his own body enhancement middle finger to slash and spread all the projectiles away from him, and they all blast behind him, completely missing. With this, Mu realizes that the boy lowered his spell on purpose, which also lowered his power, meaning he's preparing for a big attack. And just as he predicted, a massive projectile comes shooting toward him, which Mu manages to dodge by slightly moving his head. The fatty is now sweating, not understanding how in the hell Mu dodged all that, especially since he can only use that big attack once a day. To follow it up, the fatty uses another spiky explosion attack, sending it shooting straight toward Mu, who simply swings back again, dispersing all of them with his air shockwave. Not only that, but the air shockwave slams right into the fatty's guts, sending him crashing into the wall behind him with a loud bang. Just when he thinks it's over, his own shards get pushed back by Mu's attack and explode on him, creating an even louder blast. Seeing that, Mu gets excited and challenges the next person to step up, which hypes up the dragon, but the rest of the student squad is completely shocked. They all start panicking, not wanting to go in, but the dragon pushes them forward with his tail, forcing them to move. The hat guy starts pleading while crying, saying they can't just walk in there against that beast to die, and he keeps arguing how in the hell Mu is only ranked 5th. On the other hand, Mu is waiting for someone to step up and quickly realizes they're all about to run away before even fighting. So he challenges them all to come at him at once. That completely stops the students in their tracks as they wonder what the hell is wrong with this guy. They look at Mu to confirm what he just said, and our boy is looking more manic than ever, challenging them all to attack him together. Just then, a flying projectile smashes into Mu's face, scaring the crap out of all the students because they know the moment the first strike lands, the fight officially begins. It turns out to be the hat guy using his telekinesis spell, believing that whoever lands the first strike always wins. In his mind, they've got 2 rank 1s, so it should be an easy victory if they all attack together. However, he has no idea just how unhinged and loco this Mu's guy really is. Outside on the street, Lee is busy munching on a delicious chicken leg piece while crying literal tears of joy because of how amazing the food on Earth tastes compared to the other world. He is still completely hyper-focused on saving up for that plastic surgery, fully believing that he will finally be able to get rid of his ugly face and lose that hiding helmet for good. Just as he is thinking that life is going perfectly fine for once, a random dimensional crack suddenly tears open right beside him in the alleyway. He doesn't waste a single second and instantly pulls out his sword, getting completely ready to take down whatever nasty creature decides to crawl out of it. A massive dragon head suddenly pops straight out of the portal, and Lee swings his weapon as hard as he physically can to land a solid blow. However, the exact moment his sword connects with the beast's scales, the blade completely shatters into tiny pieces, shocking him down to his core. Right then, a huge explosion erupts inside the narrow alleyway, and the furious dragon fully emerges from the crack, looking entirely ready to absolutely obliterate whoever just disturbed his grand entrance. Back inside the training facility, the school manager looks out the window and then screams at the top of his lungs after realizing they have a massive city-level problem on their hands. Right beside him, Mu is standing perfectly calm in the thick smoke created after completely mangling and destroying all of the students in the class, and he casually assures the panicked manager that since their own powerhouse dragon is already out there on the streets, they shouldn't be worried about a single thing.